I like the way you work it. I like to bag it up.
Who wants to bag it up?
Uh-huh. There it is. You're looking at it right here. The best damn show in all of the a box so big we could fit two men inside of it. Could you imagine that right here? Hey, get inside the box with us. This is the Brian Campbell Experience on YouTube. BCX is for everybody, B-Hop style, okay? This is Brian Campbell, the host, but that man right there is the attraction with the best hat in the Midwest, the best stash I've ever seen, and a salty attitude about this great sport. Hey, Rafe Bartholomew, great to see you, brother.
My brother Numsi, I it's all love. I'm just sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Like you said, I'm wearing the Bablo Island hat. I'm ready to go.
That's a painter's cap, they call it.
But it is specifically a Bablo Island painter's cap, which I mean, I am representing levels of Detroit I could never understand because Bablo Island was closed long before I got here. But it was this amusement park island in the Detroit River, actually in Canadian territory.
Wow.
And you had to take a boat. They had these awesome steamboats that would leave from the river in Detroit and take you. And the stories of people getting drunk and doing bad things on that boat are just incredible. There's a Royce da 5'9" song about it. It's a legendary thing. I watched a whole documentary about it. And then I found a hat at an estate sale.
Here all along, I thought it was a Filipino reference, but shout out to Detroit, shout out to the Irish crew, the 80K crew. Heyo, shout out to Hooters in Campbell, California, was once a great place to watch a Canelo fight. Thank you to the listeners for joining us here live today, March 13th of the 2025 Thursday. As we get into the box, first of all, we're also going to get into some very hot button topics in this game. I know this game. You got to listen to me. TKO, the boxing takeover. Will it work? The pros, the cons? And by con, I'm not talking about Nick necessarily, right?
Keep his name out your mouth unless you want the TKO coming after you.
I've been willing to say TKO in the mirror 3 times fast, and nothing has happened to me. I just want you to know that. Oh, we've got a great crew of people. You know who's here already supporting this show? Alan W. And he's got a big message for us about
boobs. Brazil. He did get sent to hell that one time.
He did by Mr. Wilder there. I'm wearing my Rafe Boogs purchased Gypsy King hat. Very stylish right here.
It looks good. I mean, if it didn't have a questionable term, at least in the American context on it,
yes,
I feel like you could wear that to the grocery store, to the Whole Foods or whatever fancy bougie ass grocery, the Wegmans you be shopping at out there.
No. So I was Stop and Shop for life because you remember I was a janitor there in college. I think you remember that. But we have upgraded to Big Y, but we don't go the Whole Foods fresh.
You don't go, route. So meaning like you have people, you're Instacarting, you out here have some
first of all,
future Rafe Boogs out
a year ago
delivering your groceries.
First of all, a year ago at this time, I was the one Instacarting for others on the old DoorDash, okay? And I'm proud of that shit. No, I'll go to Fresh Market for the Tuesday chicken sale, but I'm not trying to spend those bougie prices, okay? Big Y is sort of that middle ground, you know what I mean, in terms of what do you got out there? Kroger's and some bullshit.
Kroger's, Myers, Hollywood. Man, I love the local grocery chains, to tell you the truth. That's where you find the good stuff. So
you got to rock
Market Hollywood and Pontiac. That's my mainstay.
Hollywood and Pontiac.
Yes.
All right. I used to F with Market Basket up in Massachusetts and Maine on vacation. So shout out to that chain. Dave Sandina's here looking to work himself inside of the box, looking to pay for it. As always, there you go, Dave. Great to see you. And as Lazy Bed said, this box is tailor-made for a very, very excellent turkey. In fact, HE turkey. We're going to talk about him a lot today. Keith Thurman's back. For more than just one time in 3 years, it seems. He's got big plans. We'll talk about that and the level of bloke that he sent to the underworld of the Down Under, Brock Jarvis. Do you think Brock Jarvis could get up from a Dwight Ritchie body shot, or is it too soon still?
Well, look, I don't think he may share a name with the great Brock Landers from Boogie Nights, but he does not have that kind of refractory period. He ain't getting up anytime soon. He's not getting up from that one, Jim.
Lazy Bed repping BJ's Wholesale. I mean,
Oh,
if you
good.
got to, I hit the
I've never
Costco.
been a member there. Yeah, I'm a Costco guy.
Okay,
Yeah,
you.
I bring the boom, right? Yeah, whatever the fuck that dope. Yo, explain that bullshit to me. Why? Why? Look, I don't like who cares? That the song is corny. The reviews aren't even good. Like, I don't man, I'm glad I don't have TikTok.
I mean, you're like that favorite father and son. My favorite father and son is G Bart and Rafe Boogs. All right,
No,
that's what I'm
stop
talking
lying.
about.
It's Sean and Kenny Porter, and that's
Yeah, it
fine because
is.
I
We
love
good
his daddy.
friends.
You know,
I
now
love
let's
your
get it on.
daddy. There you go. Also, people like Hank Williams the Fourth saying Big Y founded in Springfield, Mass, same city that invented Rafe's favorite sport. Can't be all bad. Okay. There we go. Also, they're saying, and they're trying to press your buttons. Rafe is a Holyoke guy. What is
Well, I
that?
don't.
What
Holyoke actually. So look, I did have cousins in Amherst, so I have been to Holyoke.
okay.
But
Are they trying to say like because Simo went to Holy Cross over there in
if it gets that deep, I guess, but I don't even know where Holy Cross is.
that's in
I'm
Worcester, Mass, which is a
That's not
H
that close
hole.
to there, is it?
Yes, that's about an hour and a half from me, but whatever. Who cares? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? They are mentioning weight wise that Big Justice is blown up like post prime Prince Nassim, who probably should finish from the buffet table. We see what you're doing there, Prince, at the hot dog stand. I mean, Big Justice is he's like a chubby kid that eats beef all the time. I got no issue.
Yo, no. We can. This is the soft bigotry of low expectations, Brian. Like this is like. Remember what happened to Terrio, that little boy who was dancing in like 2012 online, and he was cute, and I think he did lose weight and got his shit together, and thank God he did. But this, like, don't do this. Look, do you see Brian Campbell's kids out here trying to or do you see BC trying to turn his children into influencers?
No.
They will become that because that's going to be all of our future professions. But it ain't going to be because BC pushed them into it. He's not a showbiz dad.
No. My wife's like, keep our family off the
That's
internet.
right. He's
Okay,
like
it's fine for you
he's
and your
like banging
weirdo
full of
friends.
quarters and get on with it, boys.
That's
Get
what I'm
out there and
talking
fight.
about. I do have to reference something. Here's Mr. Cunningham saying, so I did a live Campbell's Rambles yesterday, and I did misunderstand what a podcast raid was at the end. He's saying it was to give me a boost. Shout outs to the guru for helping us out. So apparently MMA Guru sent his listeners in a raid to my podcast, and I thought I thought this was like an offensive attack, but apparently it was a good thing. So shout out to the people. I don't,
you thought the
I'm too old.
Vikings were the Visigoths were coming to take Rome down or whatever. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
mean,
my
I don't
history
really
that good.
understand the internet. I'm old. Let's be honest.
You say that you tell me the raid, and my brain immediately goes to an Indonesian SWAT team trying to take down a compound, and maybe my favorite action movie of the post Seagal Prime.
Of course, but
I
you're
love
talking
that
about
shit,
what
man. Iko Uwais, The Raid. I hope you have seen that.
I've
It's because
heard.
they didn't speak enough English.
No, I haven't seen it. I mean, Luke Thomas is always trying to get
Motherfucker,
me to
man.
watch
Come on,
Ran
man.
and all these great
No.
Kurosawa Japanese classics, and
This is not that. This is not that. This is like put it straight into your vein. Like you will never see people get stabbed as fast or as much. Surviving the most outrageous. Yeah. Now you'd see the
Well, he
star
made
of
me
that.
watch a movie in early MK. Was it Raid? He made me watch a movie with subtitles and just insane violence. It could
That
have
might
been
be
that.
The Raid. Yeah.
It was intense.
Yeah. It's great. Anyway.
There we go. I mean, we're still talking about boxing here eventually. One more from L&W. Thank you for supporting the show. I see Rafe is still tossing salads, but with a little bit less of balsamic vinaigrette. That's a very personal statement from L.
So I think that I'm starting to learn that week by week, Alan is teaching me his language. And I think that means my facial hair is a little bit, my balsamic here is not quite as thick as it was when we last spoke. But I am still wearing my salad tossing mustache, I guess.
Yeah. I just heard a lot of remix from you, a lot of wiki.
Oh,
Is
I
your
was
mic
doing
okay?
Maybe just too much touching, too much hands.
Yeah. Well, like sitting next to Kovalev on an airplane, right? You know what I'm saying? All right. I got a couple gimmicks.
Man.
I got a couple gimmicks today. I don't have the soundboard loaded yet because I'm a slow moving toad, but I do have a couple classics that I put into the arsenal that we can, riff on for fun. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Do not ask this man.
A message to Brian Campbell. Do not ask me what is on the USB stick.
I mean, a classic moment in our friendship right there, right?
This is true. And I still never have told you, and you will never know.
There we go. There we go. I think this crackling issue is just in my ear hole. Can the people speak on that? Do you guys have crackling or no? I don't know. I don't know. Sandine saying Luke gonna kill BC if he finds out he hasn't seen Raid or Raid Redemption. Are you down with both of those films?
I am very down. Raid Redemption is not as I love it for different reasons. It's also awesome. I got nothing bad to say.
All right, all right. And as Jay Fish is mentioning, all of us collectively are rating that box. All right, we try to. That's our goal in life, right? You know,
Brian, there are raiders
yeah.
coming for our box, the box that we respect, the box that we get inside. Is that true? That's what I'm hearing on these streets.
You get it? Wait, hold on. I heard crackling again. They're saying the crackle is just in my ear hole, nobody else's. What did you just say?
I was saying, Brian, in an attempt. Yeah. Why don't you just get your ears checked? All right, figure out what's going on in your head, because you need to put some Rice Krispies in that hole and let them crackle.
What is going on here? I don't know, but I'm just going to deal with it rather than fixing it. If you ignore it long enough, it might go away. We do have to shout out to the Japanese crew because as Barter correctly said, the Japanese top rank cards are always worth waking up for. So they did have a triple header this morning, and I did see Dan Raff, not Dan Raphael Bartolome, but the big man, DTM as they call him. He said that one of those had a 12th round comeback KO that could be, and Adam Abramowitz seemed to back this up on the old X. Could be a fight of the year candidate. Did you watch this ish?
Was that the main event? The Kenshiro versus Kuryuchi?
There was a fight with a Japanese guy. I don't know.
Well, Kenshiro stopped that guy in the 12th round. It was I guess I didn't feel like it was an incredible comeback, but I thought it was an incredible fight. It was close throughout. I mean, they were banging, and Kuryuchi definitely had moments. But it was just the back and forth action. I love me some Kenshiro. I don't know how much you've actually watched him, Brian. I don't mean that as like a calling you out, but it's actually, I am calling you out. You need to watch this.
Please do it.
You need this in your life. He's hilarious. He's had the same baby face since like 2017 when he started coming up. But to quote Bob Arum, fights like a tough gang member. And just, great offense. And it seems like he's getting less and less defensive as his career goes on. He's just standing and banging. And he was fighting this guy today who sort of just you could tell was strong as hell for the division and just wanted to walk forward and throw these like shovel hooks down to the body and hard ass overhand rights. And they just went back and forth and Kenshiro, just his offense is very varied and he's just never, he has great recuperative powers, but he also gets hit enough that he has these scary moments in his big fights, and he's always fighting good competition, fun as hell to watch. And he's only lost one time, and he came back and avenged that by knockout. So I heard DTM saying on his Fight Freaks Unite or whatever they call it podcast now, that he could, he thinks that Kenshiro in the back of in the back of a woman is something he'd like to see, but also that on the back of a pound for pound list is something that he would consider pounding that.
Was that an editorial from you about the back of a woman?
I just said, I paused myself,
yes. We have
people from the back.
Matthew Taylor is saying Taraj versus
I would agree
was fight of the year so far. Was that on this card?
That's the one. Yeah.
That's the one.
Kenshiro Taraji.
Okay. And also we had another man speaking about this, Hank Williams saying Kenshiro Taraji came back in the 12th round for the KO, and Corey Erdman was going crazy on the call. Wild fight.
I had that shit muted, but I did.
Okay, I knew you were. I knew you were going to be salty there. By the way,
I would look. It's because I was re-listening to Dana White on Dan the Man podcast and Lou DiBella on Ariel Helwani podcast and Boxing Esquire. About this conversation, this summit that we are about to have.
We're about to have it.
About the Raiders coming for the sport of boxing.
Yeah, the swinging corporate Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, that's
right.
what they are.
So I did listen to the first 6 rounds or so of Corey's call, but then it was just like, I got to catch up on these pods.
Okay, Corey's one of my favorite boxing nerds. Shout out to that guy. A couple more odds and ends here. Alan W supporting the show. We hit the toss salads before. Thank you, Alan. And also,
I'm down to toss again.
Alan saying the podcast raid was like Genghis Khan introducing his proclivities to your local women. It was a little bit much. What is this man talking about? Is there a podcast?
I think he means yesterday.
Oh yes,
when you got defiled by whatever
Guru.
other MMA channel.
Yes, there you go. And thank you also from Mr. Alan W. Raid is the best martial arts movie over the past 20 years. But BC is soft on violence, Rafe. Wow, this Alan W. just putting baby in a corner. Nobody does that on this podcast. Okay, thank you, Al. All right. We're going to get into the show now. Do I have any other trinkets, toys? Yeah, I mean, look, we got to touch gloves before we start the show.
You just touch gloves. Why do you need to touch the gloves again? You just touch gloves.
Thank you, Joe Tessa Bartholomew. Thank you very much. And, we're starting off very quick here. I don't know if you guys can handle it.
He can't handle your speed, son.
Yes, there you go. So much fun and games. All right, let's get into the show. Let's get into it, okay? Let's never mind Guru, says community service brand. Be different or die, but please don't die, but be different. Wise words from Vladimir Klitschko right there, because if you're different, you are special. Well, this is a different show, and you must say, right? You must say, as I get offered to, okay, that's aggressive. You must say here, that it's, you know what song I heard on the radio this morning when I dropped the kids off at school? One of my favorite early 90s,
Tub Thumping.
Right Here, Right Now by Jesus Jones. You know what I mean? And
this is the one place I want to be.
Right. Watching the boxing world wake up from history. You know what I mean? I imagine being on the top like this. I don't want to compare what's going on in boxing to freedom breaking out in the early 90s on the Berlin Wall, but I'll hassle that off. I'll be that guy on top of the wall playing music because things are changing. Can you smell a wind of change? Like the Scorpions sang, down to Gorky Park, I listen to the wind of change. There's so much damn change, or at least the threat of it. So Rafe, we have talked about,
I see no changes. All I see are racist faces.
Can a blood brother get a little piece, right? I'll tell you this. We've talked about this. It still may not be here, this TKO takeover, for another 18 months from the standpoint of rebuilding the foundation of the sport. But we all think Bud versus Canelo is going to happen, maybe on Netflix, maybe at Allegiant Stadium, and maybe with Dana White and TKO representing it. So based on the stuff we've heard since we've last talked, based on these very educational podcasts, Dana White sitting down on the Fight Freaks Unite, and Oscar was a freak, by the way. As you mentioned, John S. Nash guesting on the Boxing Esquire podcast with Kurt Emhoff. Ariel Helwani hosting, Lou DiBella in studio. There is a lot of talk. There's a lot of division. I'm hearing just as many people say, with a matter of fact, that TKO may be powerful. They may be well equipped financially. They may have a think group of some of the brightest minds in this game. But how many others have come to the sport with that? But on the flip side, Rafe, how many others have had this access to money, this plan to seemingly squash the Muhammad Ali Act and maybe acquire fighters? There's a lot that's going to happen over the next 6 to 18 months that will define the next decade in this sport. Will the leftover promoters band together with the alphabets, or should TKO be preparing their whores for the war that is to come? There ain't nothing like what we're about to see in boxing. But as you sit there right now with your salty ass in Michigan, is this TKO takeover going to be a thing? Is it going to work? Where speak now or forever hold your pee into that bottle you got there hidden. Okay. What do you got for me, Rafa?
If I need it, it's going right in here.
Okay. Okay.
But I usually stay away from the liquid crack before we record because I know we're going to be sitting here for a minute. But
Okay.
listen, man. I don't want to. I have no verdict yet because it's still all too unclear. All right, there seem to be two different tracks here, or two different visions of what this is going to be. And there's what has been explained and stated so far, which is that the TKO HE Turkey Butterball Ring Championship is going to be a sort of this prospects or a Tuesday night fight, Friday night fight level, Ring City USA level, minus the great commentary.
Shout out to the great Evan Rutkowski.
Fistianados, where you at? Where's podcast?
Fisty at? Come on, Fisty, where you at?
Get your fist in that box again. But it was so there's this what the stated, at least what has been released actually and officially said about it in the press releases, a little bit of what Dana led on to in his interview on Dan Raphael's podcast. And all of that seems pretty small in scale, surprisingly small in scale for the principal sort of, power brokers behind this, who are Turki Al-Sheikh with all of his money, TKO, which is, with WWE and UFC under its corporate umbrella, and the link to WME, Ari Emanuel. I mean, Nick Khan, the as much power as you can get sort of in the sports entertainment combat
Triple
space.
H.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, right? I mean, all that bullshit. And they have it doesn't make sense that all these, and Dana White, who at least it looks like the front man for it, or in terms of, the voice of it. And that makes people think he's going to run it somehow a little bit like UFC. All that together makes you think these people can't just be getting together to put together to create a sort of small time league that creates that honestly, creates Brandon Adams and Boachuk fights during the pandemic. Like, it just, that you think, and what, one or two big dates a year that they sell to ESPN pay-per-view or to Netflix, or maybe they split it up between both. It seems like there has to be something bigger at work. And that's the other side of it, which is where everyone's like, no, they're going to use the Saudi money to bring in, to lure over all the biggest names in the sport that they can. And then the long play there would be to sort of eventually trickle those belts down, and the status that confers from whatever champions they're able to get to come over and fight on some bigger cards, to transfer that down to whoever these development fighters they're going to find are. Or some people think, shoot, maybe it's just maybe they're just going to buy it all, buy out everyone. See if the fighters, the fighters generally are willing, and it makes sense why, given the how important it is to maximize your earnings in combat sports, especially certainly in boxing. I imagine in MMA too. You have short careers. You want to make as much money as you can. If they're giving you a giant bag, just go take the money and figure out the rest later. And maybe that leads to something where they can take enough control over the sport and become the really the only option, the way that UFC is becoming an MMA. Which one is it? I don't know, man.
That's a great setup for the divide here of the information we don't know, and how will they go from doing giant pay-per-views, which will probably work. If you put Bud Canelo on Netflix, it's going to work. It's great for boxing. It's going to blow up. It's going to be a big deal. How do they marry that with that other half of it, of essentially rebuilding the entire funnel, assembly line structure of how prospects come and get signed, the pay that they make, and how they're going to build that? And I think it's interesting because what we don't know either means that they are very naive in that they really don't understand how unwilling the players and the powers that be will be to help them do this. And they're going down a road that's going to take 20 years longer than they even anticipate, or they already know things that we don't know, And maybe this takeover will mirror two earlier takeovers. Alan W's got a great question, and it aligns with the questions I have here of saying this might end up looking like the WWE takeover or WWF of the 80s, which is the UFC model of their success off of it. Think about it like this. When Vince McMahon took WWF national, he offered his rivals a chance to be bought out, and if they said no, he would just crush them and take their wrestlers anyway. Dana White, in a lot of ways, mirrored that with how UFC got the monopolistic control it did. I mean, they bought out their biggest rivals and retired them and took their fighters from merging with WEC to buying out Pride to buying out Strikeforce, like time and again. So, Rafe, how much do you believe they're either naive and them announcing it this early is maybe to help their TV deal coming up with UFC? Maybe if they can package boxing with it, they could get the $2 billion they're looking for. Or is it the other side? Are we underestimating? And I think they talked about this specific point I'm about to say on the Kurt Emhoff podcast very well. Are we underestimating what Turkey has used the last year and a half for? Has the last year and a half only been about spending as much money as possible to bring attention to Riyadh season and Project 2030 and all that Saudi's trying to do politically with this movement? Or has
Project
Turkey
2030, the Heritage Foundation, or I don't even, where does Doge come into Project 3030?
Well, or has Turkey been using this last year and a half to bypass the promoters, putting money in their pockets so they'll sit back like this and let Turkey have the control? I give you an example. Virgil Ortiz versus Bakram Murtazaliev, rumored fight on Twitter. Virgil Ortiz's dad said, we're not negotiating this fight. Main Event's Twitter comes back and says, no, yes, you are. We just got an offer from Turkey on your behalf, and we signed it. Rafe, is the information that we are missing the idea that Turkey is already kind of, quote unquote, in bed with all of these fighters, that the groundwork is being set up? When their deals are up with their promoter, they're going to come over for the biggest payday of their career. And maybe TKO Boxing is going to up front put as much Saudi as possible to sign a boatload of big names. And are they going to escalate this takeover because they do have the deepest pockets and because the rest of the promoters not named Al Heyman have been asleep at the wheel, just letting Turkey walk into their kitchen and cook with their ingredients?
I guess, but I understand the idea behind that, Brian. But so how is the Virgil Ortiz example sort of indicative of how that plan is working if the fighter himself and his dad are like, we ain't doing that shit, and there and Main Events is like, well, we talked to Turkey about, like, what if Turkey, if his master plan was to make personal relationships with fighters that would eventually, and pay them well enough to get their at least temporary loyalty and get them to either try and get out of their contracts or just, move on whenever their contracts are up with their current promoters, wouldn't he be doing a better job of using his personal relationship with Virgil Ortiz to say, yo, Virgil, this is the plan, instead of having Virgil or Virgil's dad out here on Twitter saying, like, we don't want that fight. Like, why are we going to fight the guy that nobody knows and cares about with a belt in this division? Well, we could fight anybody else. We just had a big win, and we're already a big name. Anyway,
I get what you're saying. They did push back on that publicly, but I'm trying to paint the picture that it exposed what maybe that report 2 months ago said, that Bob Arum got mad.
That he's in on it. You think that Virgil's dad is in on it, that they actually do know about it, but he's just putting a good face on it?
No. I'm saying that maybe the confusion between Turkey offering on behalf of Ortiz is an example of how often he's going around the promoter. Do you remember that report a couple months ago that said Top Rank was upset that that Turkey's going directly to Big Baby Anderson, not going through the normal channels and signing fights? I wonder if the last year was about Turkey infiltrating all of the promotions by overpaying them so that he can deal directly, because these are UFC tactics. UFC regularly will call up a fighter, offer a fight when the other, fighter B is not even told, or if a fighter doesn't answer, they'll just go public and say the fight is signed. So it puts the fighter in a corner to be like, I didn't sign this. Oh, you're ducking. You don't want it then, right? I'm wondering if this is the expose of these dirty tactics we're already seeing, where if our biggest question is, you're not going to work with anybody else, which Dana said, you're going to be on your own, you're going to have less weight classes, your own titles, you're going to openly violate the Muhammad Ali Act, blah, blah, blah. They got to be smarter than, hey, 18 months from now, we'll just roll the dice and see what happens. They have to already have a plan of who they're recruiting and how they're going to bring them over. I'm not saying this is the same thing that Schaefer and Heyman did to Oscar in 2014, if this is true, but it's also not that different, right?
Well, this is, I think you were making your way there earlier too, when you said the different takeover, the recent, or, parallels to look at of takeovers in combat or wrestling sports. And I wanted to look at the PBC moves back, from 2012 to 2014, when it finally, launched. And what was the important thing that PBC had to make sure that they were able to flip the switch and get all those fighters from Golden Boy and Inside Man? So who's the Inside Man? Who first of all, is there a promotion that has is run by someone with as loose a grip on the wheel, perhaps, as Oscar had in those years when he might have been living La Vida Oscar, and where Richard Schaefer was able to sort of make these, have all of the fighters ready to move to PBC when Al Heyman was ready to launch the company, so is there a promoter that is going to get caught in that kind of situation? And who's the inside man? Is Eddie Hearn actually the inside? Like they got to have someone flipping these fighters or preparing them to make this move, and also doing the talking for them. Because we've seen Turkey out there in the world. The man is a lame. And I think that's kind of what American boxers don't like about him. Right? Right. Anybody gives a fuck about me. I ain't going to your country anytime soon, so it don't matter.
Well, he been in your country though. Okay.
Look, man, I'm more worried about the Canadians about to run over the bridge and take us all out, man. And we deserve it for the anyway.
I don't think, Rafe, I don't think they have a mole. I think it's a different plan.
They need one. You need a mole.
Well, maybe not. Maybe
you need
not.
a salesman. You need someone. You need a bridge.
Well, I think the bridge is Turkey. They've allowed him to directly matchmake for their fighters, directly call them up and make the deals, because he's paying for it anyway. And I believe the public reaction so far from Oscar, who said he was offended by what Turkey did with Dana, Eddie Hearn, who's already threatening, hey, I'm the best promoter in the world. I got my own schedule with DAZN. I don't need Saudi. And Frank Warren, who was much more politically correct in the interview I saw yesterday, but had a downtrodden tone and was supporting the alphabets in 4-belt system. So I already believe these guys had a really bad wake-up call last week when this was announced, where they were like, oh shit, the money is going to run out soon. And they picked, maybe the enemy to work with. I don't think that's the enemy for everybody, UFC and TKO. I mean, Frank has long been a friend of Dana White. You've always had Eddie Hearn saying, I get along well with Dana. But
everyone says to Eddie Hearn, Eddie, I love your daddy. Let's get it on.
But yeah, for sure. But I'm wondering if it's more about infiltrating the fighters' camps and getting them to realize, okay, how many fights do you have left on your deal? You see how much I'm paying you now. Come to us when we launch TKO, and that's it. And I also wonder, back to Alan W.'s point about the WWF takeover and also the UFC, do you think, Rafe, that these promoters, considering a lot of them are old, are more likely to give in and sell their stable to TKO, knowing that there's going to be a hefty Saudi price coming for it? Frank Warren, not young, right? Al Heyman, not young. Bob Arum, not young. Or will they be more likely to do what they always do in boxing when a newcomer comes, maybe man up together and band a team to try to keep that influence out? Because if Frank Warren one day wakes up and goes, I'm at the end of it, let me just sell off, then that's how TKO can close the gap quickly, if they can get a couple stables established.
Right. And that we sort of played around with that idea before, and we still don't, I think, know a legal answer to it. And also it gets complicated because boxing, an international sport, has promoters who have fighters signed to them under different laws in different countries. So I don't know how easy it is to just buy, roll up an entire promotional company and buy it and be like, I own all of these fighters now. It may be possible in other countries. It seems like it would be difficult to do here.
Is that Robbie Rinaldi signing?
And he always comes through with the smart stuff. So
he's right. No, I get that Frank will have a successor. I get that Top Rank has Todd DeBuff. I get all that. And I just wonder if some of these people will go, the future might be bleak.
Look, now, so the timing, I think, is ripe for the kind of takeover. Not necessarily, I mean, yes, the age of Frank Warren, perhaps, but also, Bob and Todd DeBuff, who there were rumors 3-4 years ago about Disney maybe buying Top Rank.
Right. Which seems to be over now. After
I don't know what Disney, what shell company was Disney going to have to come up with to buy a boxing entity, because you don't want like Rolly Romero and Minnie Mouse ever getting near each other. But anyway, what about, and obviously we know that Al Heyman is up in years, but more so than the age of a lot of the power brokers in the sport, I think it's also the broadcast landscape here in the States, and the sort of what seems like the appetite for sports streaming platforms, to what's left of terrestrial cable, all of that, to overpay for sports rights, even though sports rights have been the most valuable live product in sort of the entertainment space. But there's a big, like, sports is a big umbrella, and there's the NFL and the major, American sports leagues, and there's a great pay-per-view event that gets a ton of interest and makes a shitload of money. And then there's week in and week out boxing on a streaming app that isn't going to make is only a way to lose money. And we sort of have the proof of that in recent years. So I
mean, the proof is in the pudding, as Floyd often says.
Absolutely. But like so because of that, I guess I could see a world in which the Top Ranks, the PBCs, whoever, I think it's more of a problem here perhaps than in the UK, where they have it seems like a more healthy, and maybe that's just because we're not there and we don't see it up close, but it seems like UK boxing is pretty healthy on its own, whereas U.S. boxing, sort of needs some dumb money or some dirty money to come prop it up. Otherwise, there's no real money behind it. I guess because it's getting, we know that we've watched PBC try and figure out a new track through working with Amazon. Top Ranks deals, we all expect to not be renewed now with ESPN from the way people are talking about it. Is that official? I don't think it's official, right?
It's not official, but it's seen that lawsuit leaking at the time that it did, a week before the TKO announcement, it's been conspiratorially thought of that maybe that was an inside attempt to put out something that would hurt Top Rank's ability to re-sign with ESPN so that TKO could do it. Now, am I confused? Am I accusing them of that? No. But are there pictures out there of Dana White posing on red carpets with Billy Keane, the handler who is suing Top Rank and alleging relationships with Daniel Kinahan, and that Todd lied to Bob and ESPN about it? That seems fishy and or convenient, don't you think?
I guess more to me. So I guess, who cares about it? That's all shit that everyone knew about where the money was coming from before. Anyway, by the way,
and on top of that,
by the way, if the promoters do band together, do they have to go over? Do they have to take a flight over to the UAE and roll up on wherever Daniel is living in Dubai and be like, "Yo, man, we need you back. We need that money, baby.
Well,
let's go." Or is his money already behind Turkey, which might be true? Who knows?
That's what I was going to say. Did you see? This is Kurt Esquire, right? Boxing Esquire, Kurt Emhoff, the great Kurt Emhoff. He tweeted that he heard that UFC is talking to the old Probellum staff in terms of hiring them to be sort of the backbone of running
Okay, so
TKO boxing.
yeah, like we're gonna go directly to the DK front, and
Isn't that directly to Team Kinahan? And isn't Simon Brown, Tyson Fury's manager, the former Daniel Kinahan right-wing man? So I'm right-hand man. So I'm just saying that I've always believed there was connective tissue, even though Kinahan is in Dubai and not Saudi. But that's a little scary when we're already talking about two of the most powerful entities, Dana and Turkey, the evil empire. I don't know, but to act like most promotions in combat sports history have not been outright money laundering vehicles would be naive of all of us, in the same way of acting like all of our heroes did not take PEDs. Let's not be that naive. But Rafe,
don't be that guy.
I get it when Dan Raphael, who was on Pro Box TV with Paulie yesterday and Chris Algieri and Jimmy Smith, I get his take of like, hey, I've seen 50 Cent come in here. Jay-Z, I've seen everyone come in with money and a plan and hopes, and boxing sends them walking in the other direction unless they're willing to lose shitloads of that money, go through the ups and downs of the business, and really become a lifer and commit to this. I want to ask you, what role do you think the fact that TKO and Dana are 1,000% not putting in a single dollar of their own to do this? They have said on TKO sales calls going back 6 months that if they get into boxing, it will be 100% on someone else's dime. Do you think that leads them to be more or less likely to be in this for whatever form of the long run it would take for this success to happen?
So again, that gives us another sort of fork in the road. There's sort of a simplest explanation here, which is based on everything we see in front of us and which may turn out to be true. And that's that TKO is doing what the promoters just did, and which sort of boxing has always been great at, which is, finding a sucker with a lot of money and bleeding that sucker for as much as they can.
Are you talking about Waddell or Reed in this case?
Waddell, Reed, basically whenever there's dumb money out there, Triller, boxing will, and look, Triller was, I'm sure, playing with somebody else's funny money. But whenever there's someone is just trying to throw money away, the boxing will find its way to the zone. Boxing will find its way to that faucet and get under it for as long as is possible. And it seems like TKO could be doing something very similar. He's like, all right, these guys want to throw a bunch of money at us to do something that doesn't hurt us. It's a complete free roll. So we take these guys' money, we put on some big fights on the side, right? We do Bud we do Bud and Canelo, we do whatever else makes sense. And then, those are big windfalls. That actually is a nice deal for ESPN, which probably is thinking like, look, we just had a reputable boxing outfit and the product sucked. So why don't we go with a boxing product that we know is going to suck, but is going to be less expensive, and then we get some big pay-per-views on top of it, maybe, or we get or Netflix buys us out of it, and we get a little chunk of that, whatever, and that's all gravy, right? So the Saudi money is the key here, and that's also the reason I think that TKO is so adamant about it on earnings calls, is because if they said to any banker, or any investor, whoever's on the board of this publicly traded company, all publicly shared company, whoever
Wayne The Rock Johnson is one of these people. Okay.
Right. If they say our plan is to get rich in boxing, they would investors would be like, it's time to get the fuck out of here. And so the fact they need to emphasize that they're doing it all with someone else's money. Otherwise, it's a terrible business idea. But because, look, at the same time, these are serious people. Nick Khan knows the sport very well.
Yes.
He is very responsible for a lot of the fortunes of boxing media and just like this, and sports media overall.
To recap, if people don't know, he managed Pacquiao and James Toney. He became the agent for basically everybody at HBO and ESPN for stretches, from Lampley to Kellerman to Joe Tess at ESPN, and the whole Kriegel, Raphael, Freddie Roach. He was the executive producer on that Freddie Roach HBO show. And then he also not only negotiated the Top Rank on ESPN deal. Dude, I've been to fights where he almost is acting as like ringside producer, kind of calling the shots right there. So he's got the experience. We should take that seriously. But Robbie Rinaldi's got something based on something you said. Is it true to say that Top Rank really did blow that ESPN deal? I know in the lawsuit, Billy Keane is claiming that Todd was reaching out to Kinahan, desperately trying to get money and leverage to get the type of fights that he felt pressured to get for ESPN. Remember, ESPN upped their Top Rank deal after Pacquiao Horn, which did even though it didn't come on till like 3 a.m. that time, it did have stupid ratings, or 1:30 in the morning, whatever it was. Do you believe it's fair to say that Top Rank effed up or dropped the ball or didn't try hard enough or didn't have access to the type of fights that ESPN expected?
Top Rank ran like a U.S. boxing promoter with ESPN. They did what PBC did with all of their partners, including Showtime. It's just a classic bait and switch. You put some great stuff up front, come out strong, provide your proof of concept, feel like, all right, we earned our big money early. Now we're going to start slowly turning down the volume on this product and making more money out of it. Because the U.S. promoters have to do that a little bit. Now, no more orgies, Bob. Look, at this stage, an orgy is going to kill Bob, right? Maybe that's the way. Maybe on like maybe at the centennial when he hits 100.
Yes.
He has them shipped in, and he goes
I hope
out.
Lampley can voice it because he's itching to get back into play-by-play. He could be like, Bob, bang, bang. Try and get me off now. Bang, bang.
What's the first load watch? Jim could be like, it happened. Yeah. Like, Bob's gonna survive the round. Bob is gonna survive the round.
Stop it, Frank. God, you can stop at any time. All right. Wow. Hey, quick aside here from Alex Robinson, who's supporting this here podcast, and we're thankful. Will Saudi being a minority owner of DAZN impact the dates for the promoters with DAZN deals if TKO and Turkey plan to take over on another platform? So what he's saying is, because Saudi put $1 billion into DAZN, can they basically block the existing promoters on DAZN from getting the big dates, which will effectively push all the promoters on one side of the line and TKO on the other? Is that possible?
Well, that thought did occur to me because Turkey now has a stake in DAZN, and I don't know how much influence that stake comes with, but it probably doesn't come for free. There's got to be some strings attached. That does create a scary situation for Matchroom, which has really made its bones on DAZN in recent years. Now, I think I heard or read, some commentary recently that even if that happens, Eddie would not have any trouble coming back and getting a deal on Sky or one of the UK networks. But it is it's one of those things. It's like, oof, all of a sudden the guy who looks like he's trying to elbow you out of the lead position in the sport also just, bought a chunk of the platform that you've been using to show your fights across the world. Like that's going to be a challenge for Matchroom to work its way out of, but I think they will have options. Look, I think the takeover questions basically come down to this. What do and only the promoters know the answers, right? And the fighters and the managers. But what do their contracts with their fighters look like? How long do they extend for? What kind of options do they have for wins and losses in terms of, now we get a few more years of your ass? And are they, and will fighters be able to get their way out of, somehow break out of them with Turkey's money, with something, or with whatever? Like, will they be able to just buy their way out?
Even Dana said that Turkey's got 18 months of commitments left with the other promoters, and he looks at that as a time frame where he can get his business together. But they're going to be getting their shit together quicker than they're not with Bud Canelo. So my question, based on what you just said, is this: what if Bud Canelo on Netflix is done by TKO and it's a monster success, and Netflix is like, we want more of these legitimate super fights, like Take Your Best in the Sport? And then TKO starts going, okay, we haven't formed our league yet to have the roster to put out. So we're going to have to, through Turkey, invite these other promoters to come on Netflix to do these super fights. And what if that comes with a couple fight option for TKO? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is that the way they're going to draw this line of you're either with us or against us by saying you want, because I'm wondering how long will that Turkey money last for the next 18 months? And will that next 18-month calendar get sped up if TKO has very early success on pay-per-view? Could this lead to them going, look, you're either working with us right now and giving your fighters options with us right now, or you're out of here?
I mean, the scenario you're describing with Netflix and Canelo Bud and those kind of big fights, doesn't that just sound like what Riyadh season currently is? Yes. Except we're slapping a different label on it. Who cares? Like, how do they transfer that? I guess, yes, giving TKO some options. Why would the promoters agree to them? Unless, look, the only way they agree to them is if Turkey's just paying more on top. In which case, why even bother with the options? Why not just buy out the fighters? Why not just say, look, I'll give you one, like come in with like the Dr. Evil offers and just be like, okay, I want Austin Ammo Williams on my crappy ass card. I want to promote him into, as far into the future. So let me buy his contract for you for $20 million.
Well, let me ask you,
which is not much money to Turkey, it seems.
What's the shrewdest boxing business move of our lifetime? It was Al Heyman convincing Floyd Mayweather that there is a price in his contract to buy it out, right? It was what, 700,000, something around there, whatever the story was. He got out of his deal. Bob had offered him $8 million to fight Margarito. Floyd said, no, I want to fight Oscar. I know I can make $20 million. We know how that story ended. I don't know enough about boxing.
Does that story have the chapter of Floyd getting dangled off the edge of the roof of the Mayweather boxing club by his heels?
By Suge Knight with Vanilla Ice there, and then the baseball bats and James Prince. That's a convoluted story right there. But seriously on that, I don't know enough about boxing law and contracts. Kurt Emhoff would. But does every contract have a buyout number or period? To your point, is this going to be easier than we think? Because even though you can talk all you want about UFC not paying their fighters, this is Saudi money here. It's not UFC money. So can they just heavy-handedly pull people in with that strategy of, okay, instead of paying you $3 million for this fight, which is way too much, what if we just give your manager and promoter 10 and now we own you? You know what I mean? That's
and to that, I don't think I would be surprised if this is how it works out, because it is not the world I'm used to living in. But if the plan is to give TKO a slush fund, a Saudi slush fund of like billions of dollars to just spend on the side to acquire talent and continue pay and actually pay them well. Don't pay them. Don't dick them over like the UFC does its athletes. Keep paying these fighters well and make a better version of the sport where big fights happen all the time because fighters are being paid well and there's less intra promoter or inter-promoter competition to screw them over. Like, great, right? Okay, if there's just this unlimited pile of oil money to keep paying fighters well, then that's great. The scary part is if it's actually if it's actually a bait and switch or a long con on the
sport. It will be a long-term con. The younger fighters, the Callum Walsh level guys, like they're not going to get.
Callum Walsh has already made more money in the sport of boxing, I would imagine, than his talent really ever, is going to warrant.
I don't know that for sure, but you guessed with the Dana White. But like, look, those guys, because that's going to be the majority of the TKO roster in the beginning. We know that they're going to be the Callum Walsh types. So those guys, I think, long term.
We just saw one of them motherfuckers get his ass sent to hell by Keith Thurman, Brock Landers, or whoever. Fucking
Brock
Jess
Jarvis,
Rockwell.
baby.
No, he's only getting Boogie Nights names from me. That guy.
He got dicked down, Brock Jarvis did in that ring. Fuzzy Dunlop knows a little bit about that. Wow, there's so much to talk about. Let's get into the alphabet side of this. Interesting turn of events, right? In the same damn, day or 2 day period in which TKO gets announced, goes on the Endeavor friendly television shows like First Take and Pat McAfee, where they're not going to get asked any questions. They're just going to get their balls tickled. That same day, there's a Turkey press conference with Canelo and William Skull, where when Canelo and Skull are facing off for this undisputed championship, Turkey gave a motion to Canelo's team to say, no, get those alphabet titles out of there. We got the Ring Magazine Championship on one Turkey shoulder, some fake TKO / WBC ceremonial title on the other. And it was looked at as drawing a line in the sand. We are taking over the sport. We're telegraphing that we're taking it over. We're telling you our plan for the next 18 months. And sorry, every other promoter in alphabet, you're on the outs. Then you got every WBC fighter posing with a picture of their belt saying how proud they are on X to be a WBC fighter. Then you get Suleiman, probably under pressure from Turkey, because don't forget, Turkey's paying for this WBC 8-division prospect tournament. Suddenly Suleiman's like, no, we have no problem with TKO boxing. I'm sure it'll be good for everybody. And by the way, I did not tell everybody to pose on Twitter with WBC belts. Then we see what might be a photoshopped proof that he was lying. Okay, everyone in boxing lies. This whole long-winded setup is to ask you, was this an error by Turkey to telegraph all of his moves? Because all of these promoters, if they're smart enough, could actually band together with the alphabets and keep the core structure of what we do intact. And I feel like they've got a year to 18 months to figure out a plan on how they're going to push back. I feel like this was very, very, either they have a secret that we don't know that'll mean it won't matter, or they showed their cards a little too early with this. What do you think about these alphabets?
Oh, I mean, well, the alphabets, look, the idea that the WBC champions were not encouraged to profess some loyalty and appreciation to their, to the sanctioning body immediately after that event, that's dubious. I have doubts there. I also don't care. I think that's completely sort of a normal and acceptable thing to do in the sort of information atmosphere we live in, where they're like, these are now on some level, even if they don't want to court a fight with the other entities, they're competitors, and Turkey just has a giant press conference with Dana White talking about, we don't need 3 letters and all of that stuff. Like,
we're going to crush our competition was
right,
exactly
all that bullshit, and like, look, Turkey again, like, I don't know that we need to take serious every single public pronouncement from this guy, because he's just sort of jumping in and saying wild shit. And he gets excited. He's like, I'm going to be the man. And he pays enough people around him to be like, you are the man.
He is he. Him is he.
He's excellent. He's excellent. He bets he has some excellent adventures when
he excellent to each other. Yeah. Absolutely.
Anyway, I don't know. Like it makes sense for the alphabets to try and protect their turf a little bit here. I think they're in a tough position a little bit in that if there's any side of the boxing world that everyone is sort of willing to, that has no goodwill left at all, it is at least from the fans, it is the alphabet organizations. And like, I think although we understand as fans that they are a part of the sport and they kind of are impossible to get rid of, they don't do what they're the part of them and more than anyone else. And the athletic commissions were the parts of the sport that are closest to regulators, that are supposed to look out for the best interests of the sport and the fighters, enforce real mandatories, have real rankings that mean something. And they completely shat all over that on that mandate, the one thing that they were supposed to do. And they, with these rankings where it's obvious that you could put whatever fighter you want in there. If you have him fight 5 straight times at Big Punch Arena in Tijuana, knock out some cans and, shovel some money to the right guy in the sanctioning body, like or just have the right relationships over such a long time of working together. They just however it happens, and you get these, and they won't rank guys who are ranked in different organizations. It's dumb as hell. And
Yeah.
so no one ever, and you see them holding up fighters for these outrageous, percentages of their purses. Basically nobody likes you. And that's a problem when, they're the soft target. Right. And so but at the same time, how are you going to get them out? You can't really, like, the option that I don't know that I think boxing fans are a cynical motherfucking bunch, right? How else can we exist?
Look in the mirror.
Following the exact that look. There's probably a reason why we end up boxing fans. It's not just we love the fights, but we love to hate on shit. And
Pretty much.
And the idea that we're going to come in and be like, oh, this is great for the sport. Like, yeah, I don't love the sanctioning bodies. I also don't love the idea of Turkey cartoon matchmaking his way through the sport, if he has all the cards, or it being a long-term bait and switch where TKO gets to slowly like flip the revenue shares all around in the sport of boxing from something that currently, at least in the aggregate, favors the fighters to something that will, just impoverish them over the long term, and not the same fighters who get rich in the early stages. But if they take over the sport and they start all of a sudden, oh, actually, the split is going from, 70-30 to 60-40. Next year it's 50-50. Oh, you know what? Now you guys get a quarter of the revenues.
Yesterday's price, bro.
Right.
Not today.
Look, the price of the brick is different today. This is so I like that idea. I think, and boxing fans are used to to follow boxing like hardcore fans do. You have to follow tons of bullshit business and people cheating and lying and double crossing each other. So they're not going to pull a fast one over boxing fans here. It just isn't going to happen. So and one thing that's going to be different. So this is more going back to, I guess, the issue of how do you roll up all these fighters. Now, at the end of the day, money talks, right? If you throw enough money at everyone, they will fall in line.
Like if they throw enough money at you, you'll play the Dougie Fisher role and sit next to Turkey on a couch and make really bad jokes online, right?
How much money is that? How much money does it take, man? Like, I need 7 figures to be that, to just.
How many licks does it take of the turkey roll pop to get you to sit there on that?
Man,
wow.
I don't get it, man. Like, also, like, that's the thing, like, Turkey, you don't, the last people in boxing, and take it from us in the media, the last people in boxing you want to be hanging out with are the media people. We are the lames of the lames. All right. So if you think that it's cool to hang out with us, then you might need to look in the mirror and realize how much of a lame you are.
Okay. All right.
No, look, man, you saw that sitting on the couch like some, look, man's done a good job over the years with the Ring magazine, and he knows a lot about the sport. But he looked like a dumbass.
I used to have a lot of respect for him.
I still do, but it just,
I still do, but
it sucks that people get put in these positions, but you do what you got to do.
This is Rich Murata inducting, him.
What sucks is that he looked like he's having fun. Like he actually thinks that to think that, you accomplished a bunch of real things with your hard work in the sport. Yeah. Now the crowning moment of your career is getting paid to laugh at some dumbass's jokes.
What is that dynamic in that hotel room like? Like, does Turkey fart and stuff and laugh like a regular bro, or what? Like, does he talk about chicks, or does he talk about murder? What happens in that room?
I honestly don't care.
Okay.
But the thing, but to kind of I was, before I got carried away and just hating on things, I was trying to make a point about rolling up the American fighters. So the one side of the sport that Turkey hasn't really gotten, at least in the Riyadh season events, hasn't gotten that much buy-in from are, yes, the American promoters, other than Golden Boy, and the American fighters themselves. You can hear it when especially, obviously, most recently, when Gervonta Davis was talking about it. It's like, you look at that and be like, there's something wrong with this. And while there is certain, everybody's got a price, and there is a price at which you just be like, all right, I'll roll with it. there's also like you can smell the whackness coming off of those pictures from, for all the way from fucking Jeddah. And and like
all the way to Auburn Hills, baby.
It's
You can
not
smell that
something
shit.
you really want to be associated with.
I'm so happy I didn't get a bag sent to me last year when I was, in between juggling jobs and door dashing, because I probably would be right now with an air freshener behind Turkey's couch every time he farts, just spraying it, saying, HE. I'm kidding. I wouldn't have sold
your job is to actually inhale them straight from the hole.
Thank you. We do have a couple questions from the people that will further and end this discussion. First of all, from Alan W., we stand in and banging inside this box. That's what we always do. Thank you, Alan. Matt Borgerson, becoming a regular in these parts. Thank you for your support of this pod. He's saying TKO will be any good is a far-fetched dream, in his opinion. Look at the current UFC climate. Shouldn't give any reassurances when they don't deliver the fights we want or give pay to their fighters. So this is the same but different. Here's what I mean. Ever since Endeavor bought UFC in 2016, but most importantly, the last couple of years, they figured out how to get this machine so well oiled that they can start robbing the fans blindly with watered down matchmaking, fights in a warehouse with barely any crowd, and paying the fighters, of course, less than ever. And also just this overall, how do we jack up ticket prices to a level never seen before? And so we can say every single show breaks the local live box, gate record. I would have that fear for TKO boxing, and I do have that fear long-term. But short-term, the only way they're going to survive is by overpaying the first and second generation of fighters that they sign, right? In terms of the established names.
If you're going to take, the only way to take over is outrageous overpaying.
Yes.
And you got to buy out and you got to break off the promoters too, and probably the sanctioning bodies. Like if you really wanted to because otherwise you're going to have they may look, I would be surprised if promoters actually work together in a meaningful way, but I don't even think they need to, because the old playbook isn't that. It's just doing boxing. All you got to do is do boxing bullshit, right? Throw monkey wrenches and everything, dumb lawsuits, go out there lying, go out there, make up crazy stuff online, just be shameless liars, to go out there, sabotage each other's fighters, talk shit behind the scenes. There's so much you could do there that's straight out of the playbook, that is just part of the sport of boxing. And you don't, and the thing is, sure, you got the ring on your side, but are you going to be able to buy all the guys? There's always somebody online on TikTok and on boxing Twitter, a Ray Jackson motherfucker, who probably you don't even need to pay. You just need to get in his DMs and say some nice shit to him, and they're going to say they're going to start going out tweeting wild shit all over the place and build up their own counter narratives. They will the boxing promoters don't need to come. I mean, it would be wise maybe to come together. They could be more effective to come together and create some kind of united front to save their version of the way boxing is organized. But I don't even know if who is going to be the spokesperson, the voice of this new endeavor. It's going to be Dana White, a person who has probably negative equity with the boxing audience. I think that the war between boxing and MMA fans is mostly, cooled down. There aren't many smart fans of either sport who are like, that's stupid. But at the same time, you don't see the biggest thing that boxing fans know, who aren't also MMA fans, know about Dana White and UFC is that guy is a racist, and that guy loves to fuck over his own fighters. And
slap women. Yeah.
Well, that's just what the general audience knows about him.
Well, I will counter that. And I think you're right. And I saw a lot of people say hey, the boxing audience is largely, Hispanic, African-American. These guys are probably not looking at Dana White as the hero that the MMA fans are. But I think that's part of the strategy.
How funny would it be if they roll out this prospect series full of fucking Rod Salkas and Jason Lipscomb?
Well, I'm going to be honest. You're going to get a lot of that.
You're going to
get a lot of Irish
take that shit seriously.
A lot of third level blokes. But here's my theory on this. They have so aggressively over the past 2 years, meaning UFC, not only programmed their marketing toward right-wing Republican, but young white male, that I think in their minds, they're thinking, well, look, we will bring that MMA audience with us. And eventually over time, as we keep using Turkey's money to make these big fights, we'll win over everyone else.
You
But
know, a shitty developmental boxer they should have who would get a lot of attention for them. They should sign Jake Paul.
it looks like he will be the opposition, and I wonder who will end up teaming up with him of the original old guard, just to be like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But I hear what you're saying.
He does love to cast himself as the savior of boxing, and
my God,
he actually has an opportunity to do it in a more meaningful way now. That's crazy.
I mean, look, I will say,
Jake,
shout out,
man. Jake is playing some 4D chess on all of our asses.
I will say, Jake got Taylor Serrano 3 on Netflix and MSG on an all-female card. Like, that's not nothing. That's pretty damn.
Well, the viewership might be, but yeah, that's not
okay.
nothing.
All right. Matt Borgerson, one more time. This is off the line we're talking about, but thank you for supporting. What do we think of Sean Porter's scorecards? He gets maligned a lot, and I do agree with the malignment, even though I love me some Sean Porter and his dad. I will say, I don't think Sean Porter closely scores the fights enough, because he not only always has a contrarian scorecard, it's always like way off score wise to what everybody else is seeing. So I think he's probably just sort of casually watching and going like, you know what, that other guy's doing better than you think. I think it's 6 rounds to 1. And we're like, what? That might be his only flaw. Do you have any issues with Mr. What did he have? A heavy sack? What was that thing?
The ultimate sack. Yeah.
And what was it? I'm sorry, I'm crackling again.
It was the ultimate sack.
Sorry, not the regular sack, the ultimate sack.
Yes,
I'm sure
correct.
he has an ultimate sack, but what do you think about his scorecards? They're still better than Mannix's, right?
Mannix's score's fine. I mean,
Okay.
he's pretty down the middle. You know what you're gonna get. I mean, like he might, he's gonna favor certain fighters, but that's honestly those are the same fighters usually that the judges are favoring. So he's fair in that regard. And look, he had Kovalev up on him on Canelo going into that 11th round, right?
Wow.
I mean, that wasn't a crazy scorecard because Canelo just chilled until he knocked his ass out.
Kovalev had a stick for a while with that jab, although he didn't throw one right hand the whole damn fight. It was just
we know
weird.
why. Anyway,
oh wow, okay, because he was asleep before the fight during that skinhead fight. Yeah.
It was.
Hold on, quick aside from Hank Williams here. Somebody please tell Rafe that I beat Joette and I got his sister. He upset Arnold, hey guy, this weekend as a 250 dog.
I cannot believe how did Joette ever sink to the level of being a 250 dog to Arnold K guy?
I'm pro box, baby.
That guy is a little hard man, K guy. I know I have seen him fight, but I thought he doesn't have much pedigree. And Joette doesn't have terrible losses. He basically is a good, a good contender level fighter who just probably isn't going to break through at the championship level unless somebody really, really wants to give him a Jamel Herring belt someday.
Yeah, I see what you're saying right there. And look, this bloke, we don't accept talk like this. Get this out of here.
God,
Get that off the screen. That's gross.
I respect box. I respect wife.
I respect marriages. Yes.
Yeah.
Although maybe not Katie Bivol marriage. Yeah, I don't know about Katie Bivol. All right, I have 2 more points for you on this larger TKO takeover. One, it's aligned with what Lou DiBella talked about, and that was a very good interview on Ariel's show that really, I think, painted a different side. We've been getting the side from everybody in boxing's old guard going, I don't know about this evil empire. I don't know about the heavy-handedness. I don't really trust Dana or Turkey or these other guys. But the flip side is Lou DiBella, who for years was a promoter, was a decently successful one, but was always sort of the boxing watchdog that's been bringing to light a lot of the issues of the sport, and he's been frustrated for years about it. And you also have Mike Coppinger, who may or may not have voted for Daniel Kinahan once for the BWAA's Manager of the Year award, who's basically coming out and being like aligned with Lou, saying, guys, I get the fear, but we have never wanted 4 alphabet titles. We had never wanted 17 weight divisions. These are inevitable positive potential changes. After listening to Lou, do you agree that maybe us hardened boxing fans are clinging too much to our past out of fear of the future? I mean, I think it's legitimate fear. I'm going to be straight up. I don't trust Dana or Turkey for boxing at all. At freaking all.
You just said it right there, Brian.
Is this growth? Like, so, is this eminent domain for boxing here?
I don't even understand that metaphor, but I'm gonna just respond to your previous question.
It's
And
like
you hit it.
when homes have to be torn down for progress because
Well, I
they
know
have to
that,
put
but
that shopping mall in. You know what I mean?
I mean, have you been to a shopping mall recently? I have, man. Ain't nobody in there but people
That's the thing
sleeping.
of
I
the
mean, it's
'80s.
like,
Those aren't
yeah,
around anymore. Yeah.
yeah. By the way, I love those Instagram accounts that just have videos of people hanging out in shopping malls back in the day, like for like local news things. You have people with like terrible hair in Illinois in 1988 and being like,
Yes.
"I'm here to look at the chicks." Anyway, it was a simpler time, man. By the way, Mallrats, another underrated film. Very funny.
Valley Girls with Nicolas
Nah,
Cage
I
Coppola.
don't fuck with that.
Okay.
I don't
Sorry.
fuck with that.
I
Sorry.
forget I'm
No,
older than you and I'm washer.
yeah. Those 4 years, that's a big difference.
It is, yeah.
But yeah. So you hit the nail on the head, and why it is not that fans or people who are skeptical of this plan have at least some are justified in it, I believe, because we based on the information available to us, some of these pieces don't suggest we're headed to a great place. And the biggest part of that equation, I think personally, and I don't mean this as an affront to the MMA fans of Morning Combat or the BCX, but just Dana White's involvement. Like, that's not a guy I like, as someone who cares about boxing, as someone who loves the sport and roots for the fighters to do well, right? There's nothing the biggest thing we hope for in boxing, kind of in the big picture, is for the fighters to escape with some of their marbles left, not too much lifelong damage, and
Maybe some dignity.
And so, I mean, yeah, well, look, the fighters always have dignity, right? They're the ones who go in there and put their balls on the line.
Yeah.
But for them to get out of it with, life-changing money and hopefully as much of their health as they didn't have to accept. I figured that too, that MMA fans aren't crazy about the guy. But so to see that this is the partner that Turkey chose to execute his takeover of the sport.
Don't use those two words in the sentence, Turkey and execute. I'm getting
I mean, why? That's what he does when he needs to. So look, if that's to implement his implement his takeover of the sport, that's someone that he may do a good job business-wise. He may create a very successful business, but the way that he has run his other business has been to sort of disempower and take money away from his fighters and basically do the things that that happened in boxing when the mob was in control, minus the fixing the fights openly. And has been addressed. Not that I really want to get into the Ali Act, but that boxing put in rules to stop from happening in the sport, and it created other problems. And the sanctioning bodies are pieces of shit. And like, boxing is full of shit. Paulie told us. We know it's true. It's not. There's a lot of problems in it. But this is not the guy I want to see rule it from here on out, because I think and you heard I enjoyed Lou's interview on Ariel Helwani's show as well. But the one thing he never mentioned was fighter pay. And if this all goes according to plan, that's probably the thing that suffers in the long term is fighter pay. Because we've seen what it looks like in the UFC. and now it's not even leading, it seems, at least to listen. And you all of you MMA fans know a lot better than I do. But to hear the vibes coming out of the sport right now, it doesn't even seem like all that control and all that money that UFC is raking in is leading to a great product for fans these days. So boxing fans have a right to look at that and be like, no, I don't want that guy running my sport. And maybe, so here's a hypothetical I'd like to throw at you. What if instead of partnering with, and I know you, well, I'm asking you, you're practically a company man at this point, Mr. Moro Abner-Mares, but
I bleed PBC. I bleed Heyman color. Okay.
Right. So, but honestly, if Turkey had come out and held the same exact, almost word for word, the same exact press conference, but with it was PBC and Al Heyman instead of TKO and Dana White, how would you feel? I would feel different as a boxing fan, because if like most fans have criticisms of some of the ways that PBC has run its business over the years, and nothing is perfect.
But the fighters are first, dude, and you know this. The fighters are
that
first.
Is the one thing you always have to give Al Heyman credit for, is even when he was fucking, even when it led to PBC fucking over the fans a little bit, he was always giving the fighters good money. Yes. Overpaying them at times, and he would go find that money from whoever was willing to pony it up, and he was Robin Hood for the fighters, you know. So I guess someone and even if, and that's an extreme example, maybe if it's just Eddie Hearn, maybe if it's just, you know, maybe if it was just one promoter. I say Heyman because he has the most pro fighter reputation, and he also was already doing something sort of on the margins of the Ali Act, but making it work with fighters by never giving them a reason to make it a legal concern, because he was doing right by them. In any case, if there was someone, whether it's Al Heyman or you name the person, that came out as the implementer of Turkey's grand takeover, would you feel different?
I might, especially if I felt like they would have the control. And I do actually think that long-term Dana and TKO will have more control than Turkey. I think they're going to find a way to stiff arm him. I think they don't like his sort of reckless ways of not only matchmaking, but announcing things beforehand. But yes, I would trust more that somebody from within the boxing framework might try to put the sport a little bit more first. And I know you can counter that with many, many examples of where these same people maybe didn't, but the recent track record of Ari Emanuel and Endeavor is taking a great product in the UFC that has all of the advantages and built-in monopolistic control, and instead watering down and being greedy to get the most money out of their own product. You've got Dana, who's literally the power slap guy who shits on boxing all the time, and I think is purposely coming with a marketing strategy that's aimed, like I said, at waking up those younger 20-something MMA fans and saying, remember when your dad used to talk about how boxing was good? Well, it sucks now, and I can fix it with this plan. So, no, I don't trust these people. I don't want these people in there. But what is Hank Williams saying? Loving the TKO analysis. Honestly, I stopped by because I thought this was a Cletus Selden fight preview show. He will be there this Sunday in the all-Irish get down, even though he's not Irish. Long live the box, indeed. The last question I wanted to get to related to this, Rafe, and a lot of people chimed in the comments, and they're right when you said maybe MMA fans, responding to that comment, don't like Dana White. Like 60% of them feel like Dana White walks on water, but it is the other 40% that are sort of like, man, this guy's starting to get in the way of the sport. He's checked out. Do we want that guy running boxing? I don't know. But here's my last question on this. Who will be the first promoter that's currently a Riyadh Cizn promoter to turn on Turkey and make a big fight without him? We heard rumors last week of Bivol Beterbiev, or maybe it was earlier this week. And then we actually saw Turkey jump in on Twitter and be like, hey, Bivol, don't forget who loves you. Don't forget who's giving you all that money. I'm not going to bid on the Benavidez fight, basically saying I want to do the Beterbiev trilogy like we planned. If you don't respond to me, the offer is going to go away. And then suddenly we see Bivol putting on Instagram, can't wait to make a new fight with my favorite team at Turkey Al-Sheikh. Also, I just saw a tweet by Sky Sports yesterday saying that Dubois and Usyk might fight. That was before the WBO made Parker Usyk the mandatory. And Turkey even responded to that tweet going, wow, okay, good luck. Do you think somebody soon, whether it's Hearn, Oscar, Frank, will turn their back on Turkey and say, sorry, I'm going to do this fight with these guys on our own. I'm going to put Usyk Dubois 2 in Wembley without you. Or I'm going to put Bivol Benavidez, in September in T-Mobile without you. And if that happens, what will happen after that? What will be Turkey's response?
Oh man, so I'm thinking on a couple of levels here. The fight on the big fight on the immediate radar that seems like the best candidate for that is the one that came up early, last week or earlier this week, which is Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol versus David Benavidez. There's the mandatory aspect of it. There is the fact that it's a fight that fans would absolutely get behind. There's also the fact that it has there's a clear route for that to happen, in which all Bivol has to do is work with PBC to make a fight with Beterbiev. Now, I would, as Bivol, I don't know if I want to fight in Vegas because that record is not great. But
be Canelo in Vegas.
That's true. That thing is, Bivol is that good. Like when he wins, he usually wins outside of these fights with Beterbiev, which are as close like the closest fights I've seen in years almost. He has a good. I would be confident as him. As like, look, if I beat this guy, I will make it clear enough. In any case, that's a fight that there's like PBC is already out of the Turkey business for the most part, except for little things here and there. What, Rolly Romero? Is he still down with them? And Benavidez is a big enough star, I think, now that you could make that fight on its own and make money off of it on Amazon, pay-per-view in the States with whatever the box pay-per-view, whatever, I don't even know. So that's the one that makes the most sense to me. Although Bivol is also the kind of fighter who really needs needs money from a source that doesn't care about losing it because he's not a big draw. Unfortunately, I love him, but he ain't. But in any case, that's the one that seems most likely. If you were trying to come up with a mega event that would really put the Raiders, the TKO turkeys on the HE TKOs on notice, it would be, and this is far-fetched and probably absolutely could never ever happen, but I think it would be old Frank and Eddie working together without an intermediary and saying, you know what, it's time. Let's open up Wembley and put AJ and Tyson in there.
Yes.
And show what real boxing promoters can do.
The only problem with that is Tyson's manager is Simon Brown, who is
there's a lot of problems with. I mean, AJ. I think. I mean, if there is a fighter who HE has a pretty good relationship with, it seems like AJ might be one of them.
Yeah, I would thought you were going to say like a crazy super pay-per-view doubleheader where Top Rank, Matchroom, and PBC get together, and like the main event is Tank Shakur and Benavidez Bivol as the co-main or something like that, where it's like, but then again, in this modern day of pay-per-view stealing streams, I'm not even sure you can make your money back on something like that.
Yeah, that's a great card for hardcores. It would get a lot of press. It would be a good moment for the sport. But is that's still the biggest fight in the sport, right? Just because of who's involved. Am I overlooking anything? Canelo, I don't think there's anyone Canelo could fight that would actually be bigger than, even with no belts on the line, AJ and Fury, because it's been, it just like that that's a lot of star power. The way that the UK would get behind it. I mean, that shit would, and that would be something that like, hey, TKO, y'all could like look what like you can't get this.
Yeah, you can all S a D. I think I'm sore at Saul. I mean, he took the money, whatever, but like no one cares about this skull fight. The Bud fight will only go, launch TKO. And I kind of wish, for the sake of the old guard of boxing, that Canelo would be like, no, Turkey, sorry, I'm fighting Benavidez this fall on PBC in Vegas, and American boxing is back. I have heard that the Crawford fight is not signed, like not even close, but I don't know if Canelo is officially signed for multiple fights with Turkey, and that is a non-starter. I don't know. But to close it out, a couple of quick comments from the pay folks. Matt Borgerson, thank you, sir. Abdullah Mason would be a be a great one. Him, Keyshawn. That's why Turkey's tweeting at Abdullah, by the way, which I'm sure is pissing off Top Rank.
But here's another question. How so prospect contracts, do they, and I don't know that you would necessarily know the answer to this because I don't know off the top of my head, but like, early career fighters, how do their are their contracts structured differently from stars who come on, once they're already at the championship level on their second or third deal? Like, basically, how long is it? Abdullah Mason's at the beginning of his career. Wouldn't Top Rank have locked him up for a pretty, like, at least 18 months? Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know how easy it is to just go in. If they can cherry pick the best prospects in the sport, then they're in good shape. But I don't know how easy that is to do. Also, it's hard as fuck to identify the best prospects in the sport. So that's tricky.
All right, we got to fast forward through a few of these here. Hank Williams saying, "Do you all see there's an England soccer stadium with a 100K seating set up that will blow Frotch's famous 80K out of the water? The Cobra must be gutted." I wonder if the Cobra can get Jake Paul. That would be interesting. I don't know. A couple other points here on this to close. Thank you, Alan W. Question is, why is there such a hard disconnect with MMA fans and boxing fans when it comes to fighters getting paid? I never understood that. For some reason in MMA, there's like a apathy from the fans. They think the fighters are just like caged animals that go out there and they don't seem to care whether they get paid or not. Would you say that in boxing we tend to care more about that and support the fighter's journey? I would say that.
I think so. I mean, so I think it's the way that the sports narratives have been told over the years. I think that a big from the outside, at least, I think that UFC sold itself to fans on some level as, look, this is necessary for us to deliver these stacked cards, this product that never disappoints, the sort of the things that when UFC was really rising and was winning over fans in that way. I don't know, you would know better when that period was, but I think of it in like 5 to 10 years ago when like when you could expect every card to be awesome from beginning to end and well matched and in in the UFC, if when you're ranked, you get your shot. They're not going to duck you. Champions can't duck guys. And I'm sure there are examples, blah blah blah, that prove that it was never always true. But that was part of the narrative of the sport, and part of that narrative was that, well, we're able to do this because we control payment. Fighters don't have as much leverage, and so fans accepted that on some level. And in boxing, it's the opposite, where one of the big storylines out of every fight, especially for the hardcore audience that follows all this stuff, purse bid heads is a hashtag on boxing Twitter, and it's something that Dan Rafael has been reporting even before Twitter existed, right?
So it's pay-per-view buys, like it's so heavily looked at as a measuring stick of someone's fame.
And who is the biggest star in boxing, for most of our lives? Floyd Money Mayweather.
Exactly.
And he told you exactly how much money he was making of every fight. He told you exactly how much money he was willing to pay his opponents. He told you, and when he didn't take a fight, he told you it wasn't worth the money. He basically he created that mindset for boxing fans, and the boxing business sort of had to follow because of his power in the sport. And then, by beating Canelo's ass and just, outclassing him, putting a clear difference on that wonderful day in 2013.
Yes.
He also taught Canelo that lesson, and Canelo has gone on and implemented it brilliantly throughout his career. So I think
we're running out of time.
No. We're not stopping today.
Quickly here from Burgess saying Dana White is a bald-headed Trump. We aren't afraid of changes in boxing. We just don't like Dana, nor does anybody who knows him. It might depend on your political lean, but I think there's a lot of reason not to like Dana, or not trust him, at least, despite the fact that he had a legendary career in MMA. He was awesome at promoting and carrying the sport. We're so far past those days now. It's why Power Slap exists. It's just a joke. Also from Alan W., I know we want fighters to get paid, but let's say TKO takes over. How much dissonance and discomfort should we have if the players in the sport are too stupid to fight for it? That's what they're going through in MMA. The fans are basically like, if the fighters aren't smart enough to organize or push back at all, then how mad should the journalists keep crying over it? I mean, I've hit that crossroads many times too, It is what it is, right?
Great answer there.
I mean, where is Cali when we need him? Says bruh, GHB. The big fan of Cosby, that guy. Thank you very much. Also 9:15 a.m. What does T/F mean? The fuck, or true or false? The true or false. Canelo versus Jake is bigger than AJ Fury. Commercially, is it? Yeah, it is. It is.
Probably.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's not. I don't know if I call it boxing, but it is bigger.
Oh wow, Green man, they want us to keep talking about TKO here. Green Go, thank you for the help here, and that you are wrong about pay. We don't care about fighter pay because the fighters don't seem to care. They have refused many times over the years to give themselves any leverage. Yeah, I mean, that's just what we said. He's probably right. If they can't figure it out, if they can't fight for their own interests like Ngannou or Randy Couture did, then what are we going to do about it? Quickly also, and then we're going to transition into Teo. Screw You says, Rafe, hey guy look promising in a Thai Boeing way.
I believe Thai boxing.
Thai boxing comes from my city, even trained with him once or twice. Whoa, Screw You's been training with Arnold K guy. Hey, all right, here you go. And then we can't forget about Hank Williams. He's saying Rafe is looking more and more like Kansas Jayhawk, Boston Celtic legend Rafe LaFrentz every episode. 2 elite stretch fours right there. Do you like or dislike Rafe LaFrentz because he has a different spelling of your name?
Overall, I'm in favor of it. I mean, my name gets spelled. I mean, you got the English Rafes out there who are just named Ralph. You see, I get with a name like Rafe, you get used to so many weird things happening to your name. It's fine. Brian, I had one question for you before.
Yes,
I know, I see the clock, I get it, but I did want to ask. To me, the mystery to me is like, what was Turkey so unsatisfied with the status quo that he had basically created over the past 2 years, 3 years, where he was the most important man in boxing. He could make all of the best fights in boxing. He was getting all of the credit for that from fans, from media, and from most fighters. He basically did. He paid his money and did what he wanted to do. I don't get the Riyadh season status quo. Did not seem like it wasn't working out for his goals, which seemed to be to spend a lot of money and to have a bunch of people celebrate him and put a good face on Saudi Arabia because they're supporting a sport that doesn't get enough support.
I'll answer you. Yeah. I think it's twofold. Number one, Dana revealed on the Dan Rayfield podcast that Turkey reached out to him day one when he came to boxing, was like, we want to hire you away from UFC. We want you to run Riyadh season in our boxing interest. Dana countered, said, I can't, but maybe we could bring in TKO, Nick Khan, etc. Because Nick Khan was the one who set up, through his relationship with WWE with Turkey, set up that meeting. Two is, I think all along Turkey's, he's representing his country's wealth in an attempt to change their image. So I think they looked at it as, yes, we have seemingly unlimited money, but this is not a smart business plan to just keep doing this. There has to be an end game of how we can not only take over complete control, but we can actually make some money back. And I think they looked at what Endeavor did with MMA and said, you might be the people that can figure out how to do that for us.
Well, how much compared to like how much the Saudi investment fund has paid for like Cristiano Ronaldo, right, whatever the hell that motherfucker, all the footballers who are playing over there now, I mean, one Ronaldo bought like how many years of boxing? Like, are they really trying? Are they really counting the pennies on this?
Well, I think it's because they tried to take over golf and couldn't fully do it. They tried to take over other sports and couldn't fully do it. I think they realized that if they align with TKO, they have a plan and structure in place that just needed unlimited funds to actually be able to push everybody out and form this in-house league. So I think it turned out to be a perfect marriage. Final point on this. Are you for it or you're against it on March 13th, 2025? Because I'm against it right now. They got to win me over. I'm not for this. No,
look,
I'm not.
I don't know what it is yet. So I'm not going to come out and say I'm against it, even though I like to talk shit about it.
Yeah.
If it works out, well, look, there is some tiny ass world in which the money just keeps coming and they're able to roll everything up and keep putting on how many years of good product would you accept or would you think is okay before they flip the switch and turn it into a piece of trash and stop paying the fighters?
I think
5 years,
so
10 years?
Yeah, it'll all depend how quickly they can gain that control, but then I think it'll be a slow downhill year by year, month by month of pulling back on the spending, all that shit. You know that.
Well, look, I mean, I don't know if that's a terrible outcome. I mean,
well,
who knows what's going to happen 10 years down the line? We all going to be dead, man.
They have made UFC soulless. They have taken away personality and storytelling and rivalries and made it so about Dana and those 3 letters that my fear is that is all boxing will end up being, just another trinket in their portfolio of bull riding, WWE, UFC, TKO boxing. And they're not even marketing the prices toward fans because they're going to the cities and getting government contracts to put all 4 events back to back the same weekend. I think they're just turning it into the Walmartization of combat sports. But that's it, Rafe. We got to get to the next topic. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
May 2nd, of course, Times Square, not Riyadh season, Ring Magazine, the second ever card, first in U.S. soil. They had a second press conference. The first was hosted by Dougie Fisher in New York, and we had problems with it. The second had Todd Grisham, and you could tell that they were trying to purposely counteract what didn't happen in that first one, meaning he was stirring it up. He was letting the crazy personalities talk to each other in aggressive ways and really hype up this matchup. First and foremost, did that second press conference get you more excited about this card, or are you still sort of like, hey, it's cool, but all these matchups are only setting up future matchups?
We talked about this last week, Brian. I'm psyched about this card. I may not. Look, I could come out with egg on my face on this one, but I think that both
eggs.
Yeah, it'll be a challenge. But I have enough belief in me that Ramirez is going to give a good accounting of himself, and whatever is left in that tank, he hopefully will summon and make a good fight with Devin Haney. I don't have a lot of belief in Rolly Romero, but I also don't have much belief in Ryan Garcia, and they're just going to go out there and be, like hump each other, make some moments together until, in all likelihood, Rolly gets caught, and that's the end of the fight, and that'll be fun too. And I love the what I call the main event, even though I think it's not, which is Teofimo and Barbosa. You don't need to sell this card to me anymore. So I am hyped for the fight. I don't give a shit about the press conferences, whether they're exciting or not.
Okay, well, we got moments in there. We not only got Jose Ramirez team saying, like, they're going for the knockout against Haney, and you did have Grisham kind of openly questioning Haney's chin, and we'll get to Todd Grisham in a second.
He's right to do that.
Here, though, is the slap heard around the world, the face-off.
I didn't hear that shit.
Between Teofimo and Arnold Barbosa, who were the only two that were really hyping up that first press conference. They took it to a new level here.
Bro, he started that shit, bro.
First of all, are they in rival biker gangs with those leather vests?
Yeah, they had just watched that Tom Hardy movie where he's doing like the weird, terrible accent the whole time. Like,
Teo had eye makeup on.
I like to do bicycle riding.
That's a deep pull right there. Teo had eye makeup on like he was Johnny Depp in the Pirates movie. We already like this fight. I'm liking this escalation, though, of disrespect between them. Like, this has the potential to be the closest, most competitive fight of the three. Although I'm not sleeping on Haney versus JC Ramirez. I think Jose Ramirez is at 147, not making that weight cut is going to be a challenge for Haney. But do you think Barbosa can win this?
Yes, I think Barbosa can win. I mean, we've seen worse fighters than Barbosa push and in one case defeat Teofimo Lopez. And it's Lopez, right? Why all of a sudden that sounds wrong coming out of my head?
You're thinking of Teofilo Bryn Jonathan Stevenson.
Oh, Stevenson, yeah, he's a great Cuban champion. But no, and I also believe in Barbosa. Like he has never underperformed in a fight. Do I think that he has the high end talent that we've seen from Teofimo on the best nights of his career? No, but I think that Teofimo is going to need 90% of what it took to beat Vasily Lomachenko or a still good version of Josh Taylor. I think he's going to need that to win this fight. And I hope he brings it. I think that he often, shows up on the biggest nights. And if he treats this like one, I think it could be a great fight. I just like Barbosa. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's going to give a good accounting of himself. And if we see a version of Teofimo like we've seen against whoever, Sander Martin or some of these other guys, where he didn't look good and seemed distracted and all that other stuff and took it easy, Cambosis, I do think that it's up in the air. I think Barbosa can win.
All right. I can't wait for that fight. Let's talk about Todd Grisham versus Bill Haney. I don't think Todd went over the top. I think he was asking the right type of pointed questions to stir the pot. I got no issue with it. Bill Haney did during this interview, which happened after the press conference. As our guy Poolside Bloke will tell you, Grisham disrespecting Bill's son like a 2009 SmackDown jobber. I disagree with that, but I want to get your take after we play this asset. Here we go.
You're full of shit. And I hope that this is what you guys wanted to do. It's a fucking circus act. Devin is a real fighter, and you showed no respect up there. You showed no respect for what he's done for boxing. He's a 2-division champion, an undisputed champion, and you're a piece of shit.
Well, that's not kind of you to say.
Well, I mean, I'm just telling you the truth.
Well, why are the fans booing him then?
Well, I mean, that's because a part of it. We are in LA. This is a great boxing market, right? But it's made up predominantly of Hispanic fans that cheer for Ryan Garcia, and that's quite all right.
Well, it's okay to be the bad guy.
But listen, and it's okay to be the bad guy, but it's not good for you to be the piece of shit that you are.
Well, explain what you mean by that.
Well,
what did I do specifically?
Well, you didn't describe him for who he was.
Michael Buffer introduced him.
No, but you on the stage, you painted Ryan Garcia as if he's won something. He's a PED drug cheat. You never said that. That's really.
I did. I asked your son specifically if the punishment fit the crime. I asked your son that specifically, and he said he was at peace at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the punishment is one thing, but how you describe what that fighter is and what he is, you didn't do.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I have the most respect for your son. I think he's amazing at it.
I don't think that you do. I think that you are political, right? You did just what you wanted to do, and you got it off. I mean, and that's what this promotion has been about. But number 9.
But we're trying to sell a fight here. You know this, right?
Well, you sell it right.
All right, here's your chance to sell it.
Right. You sell it right. March 2nd, Devin will come in, and he's going to be what he's going to be a better version of Devin Haney, just like he said.
So at the end of that, it clipped off, but Todd was like, why don't we hug it out? Come on. And, it was almost like, I would like to shake your hand. But look, Bill out of line, or Bill, after a year of bad PR, largely caused by him and his son, just trying to dig in and gain back some respect? How do you read this? I
don't know how Todd Grisham feels about it. You know Todd pretty well. I know Todd a little bit from ESPN back in the day. Always a very fun guy to be around, and I haven't even been around him when he's partying. And also just funny and like a good presence. And so I kind of think that he got a kick out of that too. He seemed to handle it well in the moment.
He did handle it well. Definitely.
And I'm sure on some level, like, they turn off the camera. It's like, man, fuck that guy. But at the same time, like it seemed like, especially for how things can go with a press conference involving Ryan Garcia and Teofimo and Lopez and all these, like, that seemed like pretty good, wholesome boxing, like, like showmanship, shit talking with a little bit of a real edge to it. I didn't mind it at all. Plus, I mean, there is the boxing dad angle of it here, which I agree with. Like they do get a little too heated again, but like it's not that there have been way worse moments over the years with Teofimo's dad, with Angel Garcia. Angel. So to me, it was, and I guess what exactly was what was Bill Haney so mad about? Do you know?
I think he was mad that Todd led with a question that was like, Devin, based on your fight with Ryan Garcia, boxing believes you no longer have a chin. Hey, Jose Ramirez, is that something you're going to target and go after his chin? And hey, Devin had like a look like, why are you saying that? You know what I mean? And Devin interrupted him and said, why are you saying that? I got up off the canvas every time I was knocked down.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, like, if I were trying to insult Devin Haney in that along those lines, I would say, Devin, I question you. Boxing questions your chin because you were on, Q Street against Jorge Linares a few years ago.
A beautiful man though. Beautiful guy.
And you're obviously a very safety first fighter. Like, there are some reasonable questions there. Now, that's a very direct way to put it. It does put the fighter on the spot. You don't, like, that's not obviously, if you were interviewing Devin Haney, I don't think that you would bring it up that way. And if you did, you wouldn't expect a very good answer out of it. Right. But for a press conference situation where, maybe Todd went in with with either instructions or the mind or an idea to create a livelier atmosphere than the first one, I get it. And I think that it kind of just creates some good theater. If it maybe that means that Bill and Devin Haney don't like Todd Grisham very much from now on. But then what that again, what does that lead to? Devin Haney wins the fight against Ryan Garcia one day. Maybe he goes, they pull Todd up from the apron and they're like, yeah, and fuck you too, Todd Grisham. You never gave me a fair shake. All right. And Todd is like, if I was 20 years older, I would whoop your ass. And then they laugh. I mean, and we get another great boxing moment.
That would be great. That would be absolutely great. So I'm in on that May 2nd, not as in on the Sunday, not as in on Saturday night when Canelo fights William Skull, a couple decent fights on that undercard, but nothing great. What about the Sunday? It is official. Hank Williams wants to know our thoughts on Naoya Inoue welcoming Ramon Cardenas, Dinamita in Vegas on Cinco de Mayo. That was just announced. It's not MJ Akhmadaliev, although it seems like they're planning that for September. This will be a 4-fight year for Inoue. He'll make his Saudi debut. It feels like they tabbed Cardenas only because he's Mexican, but he can punch a little bit. Like it's not the best opponent, but it's not a horrifically bad opponent.
How's it going to be a 4? I know I've heard this 4-fight year thing before about Inoue this year. How does your 4-fight year? Did he fight already? Are we counting one? Was there one on New Year's Day?
Yeah, no, yeah. Didn't he fight already this year? Or didn't he fight?
I don't think of New Year's Day as especially, or whatever necessarily as this year, but officially it is. Anyway, that makes more sense because I was like, how are you going to start in May and have a 4-fight year?
Why can I not think off the top of my head who he just fought?
He did fight over the holidays, but I wasn't sure what day it actually occurred.
I've got his box rec ready right here. Shout out to Box Rec Ray. He beat Yi Jun Kim, the late replacement, on January 24th.
Okay. Well, that was okay. So it was well into January. Look, man, it all blends together.
Well, it's two straight non-super elite opponents.
And he didn't do a lot of his last year. Wasn't very impressive either, right? Look, he's due for a good fight. If they make the Akhmadaliev fight next, that would be great. Who do we want him to fight at 120? Thing is, Inoue has been so good. He's cleaned out these divisions, right?
We want him to move up and fight Nick Ball if he gets past TJ Haney and Brian Kenny this weekend. But we don't have time to focus on that. We got to move on.
No problem.
Hey, one time. All right. Keith, one time Thurman on Wednesday morning in Australia capped a 3-year layoff. And remember, he fought 3 years ago, he fought Barrios, and 3 years before that, he fought Pacquiao. So he's basically mailed in the second half of his career due to injuries and other issues. He was not fighting a world beater. He was fighting a guy who turned pro at 115 and got knocked out in the first round by Liam Paro. But Brock Jarvis can punch. He's aggressive. And if Keith was going to be washed, we probably would have found out about it. Heard Keith Thurman was fighting, right?
Heard Keith Thurman was going to be here. Sounded boring. Found the man. Still sounded boring.
Shout out to great moments in SOC soundboard history.
Shout out to Brian Campbell face to face on PBC.
That's what I'm talking about.
There's some great moments. Someday you got to tell us what happened in that Tony Harrison, Jermell Charlo face to face that never aired.
That was
you got to take us behind the scenes.
What do you want to talk about here related to Keith Thurman? Dude, he stepped in there in round 3 and delivered a sick 3-punch combination that ended with a left uppercut that sent this man to hell. Jarvis did get up, but quickly he was dispatched after that. Dude, it felt good. It felt turn back the clock. It felt like we got back somebody that we truly missed, whether he's talking trash to hype fights, whether he's blowing on that tube, whether he's a push and pull.
Whoa. Hey, man, blowing on a tube.
Now, look, he's fighting the good fight on that hairline, and shout out to the man. Did you not feel what I felt, which is like, great to have this guy back?
Well, you mentioned his hair. Yeah, I agree. That was just a great little Aussie experience all around. I tuned in for the Zarafa fight right before it. Saw my man, Michael, the stripper, knockout. Man, look, Zarafa gets his ass sent back down under every time he pops up in the United States, quick, fast. However, he brings the thunder down under to these dumb prospects down there who ain't shit. Like he sent that guy to hell before that. And I love
he called out Zoo. You see Zerafa called out Zoo.
Of course, man. Hasn't he been calling Zoo out since forever? And frankly, Zoo owed him that. Like, you're not supposed to be allowed out of Australia without beating Zerafa.
You got to fight Jeff Hahn. You got to fight the shapeshifter, and then you got to fight the dried husk.
It's going to be that way for at least 20 more years. By the way, what is with Australian boxing? It is, speaking of Jeff Hahn, it is the horniest boxing world out there between, all right, so you got the stripper, you got the fighting stripper, who's still quite a decent fighter. Then
except for when Ruslan De Lara
well, that's the thing. He gets sent to hell by every time PBC gives him a call. But
who killed him that time? Peter Quillen killed him.
Yeah, that was our introduction to the Thunder Down Under. So you got the stripper, you got Jeff Horn, who's got Horn in his horny ass name, and Joe Horn to take care of, by the way.
Yeah, right.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I know. And then we got Isaac Hardman. And then this Boogie Nights Brock Jarvis in the main event against Keith Thurman. Looking in, did you see? So right before the final round of the Zerafa fight, they cut to the locker room of Brock Jarvis, and he's sitting there in a pair of Marky Mark, like Calvin Klein briefs, looking and taking these deep breaths, like the kind of deep breaths I take before having to go into like a Zoom meeting with a bunch of magazine weirdos wearing clear frame glasses, like
those hipsters.
Just this deep breath, like, oh shit, man, I'm in it now.
Meanwhile, you got an 80s stash and a painter's cap on.
Right, right. So that's that. So he's Brock Jarvis just looking like he is not ready for this moment. It was, but still naked, almost to a Juan Manuel Marquez degree, and looking like he's ready for some action after the fight. But I don't know, man. These cards are just hilarious. Then with Keith Thurman having to like do his ring walk dance through just the sad hallway.
with they have fire. Do you see those tubes of fire they have in the arena that just randomly shoot up?
That was after he had to walk through the random hallway. With the whole thing was great. What about the performance?
What stock are you going to put on? It wasn't a world beater. We've established that.
Less than a world beater.
But if you want to see if Thurman is still with it enough to give Zoo resistance, I think he passed that test fully.
I agree. He looked like Keith Thurman. He looked like himself. Now, he wasn't really fighting much. It's very hard to judge the opposition here. The opposition was very bad, I think. I don't know if the question, I guess, I will carry going into his next fight, if it does turn out to be with Tim Kazoo, will be was Brock Jarvis so bad, that there's just no that it means nothing how good Keith Thurman looked against him.
Is it fool's gold? That's the question. Yeah,
we won't know that honestly until Thurman fights someone better. But look, he looked like himself. He did not look like like he's just done, he's fighting better opposition, but Jose Ramirez in recent fights hasn't looked like the guy he used to be. Whereas Thurman, while doing it against next to nobody, looked exactly like Keith Thurman. So I think that's a good sign. And it just made me excited for the Tim Kazoo fight.
I'm into it. So Tim Kazoo needs to first defeat Joey Spencer April 5th in the States. I believe Prime Video is going to pick up that stream. I don't know if I'm going to call it. I hope so, bro. I'm calling Fundora next week. I hope I'm calling that as well. But Keith afterwards said, hey, I know the plan. Like, Keith is only headlining a no limit card in Australia because they're setting this up. And by that
is Master P involved at all?
No.
Can he do some lawsuiting on these guys?
Percy Miller? No. But if that happens in July, I think it's going to be a more anticipated fight than had it happened when it was supposed to back when Fundora took his spot last year. But what do you make of Keith now saying publicly, look, if the offer's right, I'll fight Zoo, but I may not necessarily automatically be fighting him, and I'm open to other options. 154 is filled with a variety of names, young and old, coming or going. Would you pop to see him, Keith Thurman, potentially against a Errol Spence, Jermell Charlo, somebody in that 154, heck, Fundora for the belts if they had to. Where do you sit on? Does it have to be Zoo? Should it be Zoo next for Keith?
I don't look. No, it doesn't have to be Zoo. I think that fight makes sense if they're working towards it. I'm happy to see it. But yeah, Keith Thurman with a win under his belt he has a name, and that name is going to be valuable to fighters other than just Tim Tszyu. It could be Fundora, it could be Boots at 154, it could be Virgil Ortiz, could be Boachuk. I mean, those are some fun fights. I know they aren't necessarily on that side of the street, but there's just a lot that the 154 all of a sudden is feeling pretty hot, and that's good timing for Keith Thurman, assuming he can fight again in the next 3 years, to get a big fight against one of those guys and show up on the actual fight night.
Sad but true. Yeah, that comment.
By the way, I would. So yes, you asked about Spence. I would pop for that because there's unfinished business there. Though there are a couple of those. These were the top welterweights of the last 10 years, the welterweights, as Keith likes to say. And now they're not in weight category 147 anymore. But they're still like, why not? Like those are I think fans who lived through that era want to see that, it would still be fun, even if one of them is washed and it turns into a terrible ass fight. It turns into Real Salvarado 3, right? It's still we got to see it. I would even accept, and I don't think this is in the cards because it's actually, man, they're never going to do this, but doesn't our man, wouldn't Terrence Crawford like a stay busy fight before
but
he fights Big
Red?
He's
fighting Canelo and he's getting out. You know that.
But if that's more unfinished business, right? Those are the three that
I want Virgil Ortiz,
but those I would love to see Keith actually fight one of those guys. And I think that the reason he didn't is because he didn't love that idea. But I still want to see those fights.
This poolside bloke joke, not the first
like
time. Not the first time Percy Miller's been involved with strippers. I'll tell you that much. Also, Ian Keith one time every 3 years. Thurman, that's also true. And don't forget, Shadowbox Alvarado was prime right there. We got to hit to close. We're gonna hit a couple of these remaining comments. Then we're gonna hit. Do you care? What a show today! What a freaking show! Okay, first of all, Mason Plumlee, who got in a fight last night. His brother Evan is right. Don't forget.
True.
Keith, it was 114, 113. Thurman over Pack. I had it. Glenn Feldman had it. We were both ringside. Thank you.
And I both know it didn't happen. Yo, you and Glenn, I don't know what Applebee's y'all are eating at together in Connecticut, but you need to chill with that main
back. He's got the Merlot. He's got the Malbec ready with Jimmy Foley. Forget Canelo Crawford. Mike Lee, Brock Jarvis is the fight.
That's right.
Wow.
For the foot long.
Yeah. When loser gets molested by Jared. What do you think? Okay, that's too far. Also,
they're too old for Jared.
Hank Williams is saying the next Aussie card is Cambozo versus Dawood Yordan, the sitting Indonesian congressman. Aussie boxing is comedy. Rafe already knew that.
I didn't know that he was a congressman in Indonesia, though. That I still can't believe that they dragged poor Dawood Yordan back out of maybe he wasn't in retirement, but that guy, I saw him get sent to hell. Take a never come back type beating from Caballero.
From Alfredo Tapia. Boblo Island by Royce.
Pablo, motherfucker, come on.
Is by Royce 5'9" is such a great song. Great shout out, Rafe. Why are they spelling Rafe R-A-P-H? Don't they know that it's R-A-F-E?
That's fine with me because my full name is R-A-P-H-A-E-L. So
okay, but why don't you pull a Dan Raphael and make sure that people know it's not Raphael and pronounce your name Raphael Bartholomew?
Because more people in my life have called me Raphael than Raphael at this point. My mother used to once in a while say Raphael when she was mad at me. No one has said that to me since.
So your mom was a fight freak.
My mom was a freak.
Okay, that's enough of that. Tapia also saying, imagine a Luke Thomas and Rafe podcast together. The sodium levels would be so high and so good. That's an interesting combo. Let's hit Galache again, who came in and supported us.
BC was like, "Nuh-uh, never happened. I'm never letting them.
That's my side piece. Don't be taking my side piece. Who is under more pressure, Galache? And thank you for your support of this chat. Golden Boy, PBC, Top Rank, Matchroom, or Lou DiBella's Man's Here. Shout out to witness protection, Robbie Rinaldi. Wow, this is high peak comedy. Also from Ian, and thank you, brother, for supporting the show. This is a good question, and we didn't exactly hit on it. One last TKO question: wouldn't Dana have to circumvent the Ali Act to fully implement his model? I think the best thing said about that, and it's a little heartbreaking to hear, came from John Estinash on the Kurt Emhoff Esquire podcast, Boxing Esquire, where they said the Ali Act only pertains to the U.S. So in theory, not only do you have Dana White's and Ari Emanuel's connections to the White House, which could help them maybe repeal this. That's one. Two, if they just sign TKO fighters to a deal based in Saudi, they wouldn't be under the Ali Act. And I think even more than that, they explained how hard it is to enforce this, right?
I mean,
So-
the Ali Act has never been enforced by a state attorney general or a federal judge, federal prosecutor. Fighters can take it in a private action, meaning sue if they feel that their Ali Act rights are being violated, and that threat does play a real role in it does prevent promoters from some of the most blatant screwing over of fighters that they've done in the past or they might try to think of doing. But there's the other thing that came up in that really excellent episode of the Boxing Esquire podcast was that the Ali Act also only pertains to 10 and 12 round fights. And if this does, at least at the beginning, the TKO series is more of a prospect or developmental series, there may not even be 10 rounders. Like, why just stop them all at 8, let these guys bang, and you can do whatever you want to them. Now,
look,
you can't take over the sport doing that because you're not going to get any championship level fighters to do that.
Right. But if you have to buy time and build your brand, I mean, look, Eddie Hearn has made a living off of taking the Sandman, right? Remember that guy? Remember Campatera beat that guy?
Why are you don't hate on Louis Ritson?
I don't besmirch that fella. I love that guy. But I'm saying you take average white guys, you put them together in short rounds to bang. There's a formula that can win. Final question before we find out if you care came in from Brody Moret. Thank you, sir. Can you guys talk about Felix Tito Trinidad? I'm too young to have seen him. I watch his fights on the YouTube. Where does he rank among other welterweights? Well, he's part of that great welterweight era that included De La Hoya, Mosley, Ike Corte. Eventually, when those guys moved up to 54, you had Vargas, you had, Winky Wright, you had others. And he was prominent at 47, 54, and 60. But for as much of a great finisher as Tito was, one of the best finishers of the modern era in terms of just when he's got a guy hurt, he'll get you out of there. B-Hop and Oscar showed that if you have elite foot speed and the ability to box and smarts, you can decode him. It's not that he was infallible, but he was dominant and fun for a long stretch. An underrated boxer, of course, who's known more about finishing you with that left hook.
Yeah. And Brody, I would say just someone whose fights are worth going back and watching because they are so much fun. He also would sometimes get hurt. He'd get hurt, he'd take chances, and then he'd come back angry and beat the shit out of people. I mean, that was David Reed, right? Are you there?
I'm there.
Was that the David Reed? Was that David Reed who he shortened his career?
He did.
David Reed, the Olympian, Francisco, Fernando Vargas. Those fights are so much fun to watch.
Are you going to take this from Alan W. supporting our show, but saying Trinidad was a weight bully at 47?
Man, I was a kid during those times. Like I was watching, but I wasn't very sophisticated. So I'm a little hesitant to rank him historically, but I tell you, he was like my dad's favorite fighter for a minute in the 90s. And here's my question. And this comes from the point of view of someone who might have a little bit of sodium for Mr. Nuts, but who's the better fighter overall, historically, however you want to rank them, Felix Trinidad or Miguel Cotto?
I think Cotto's more accomplished, been there longer over kind of over the same divisions that Trinidad had a lot of success in, although Miguel started at 140 with huge success. And didn't Trinidad win his first title at welterweight against Maurice Blocker? I think so. Yeah. And that's
because he fought Oscar at 147, didn't he?
Yeah. I would say, could you argue that his very peak, the very peak of his powers, was Trinidad better than the very peak of Cotto's powers? I think that's a good debate. But
More
I think
spectacular.
I think Cotto overall was the better fighter, more versatile, longer career.
That's the responsible thing to say, but I mean,
Mr. Nuts?
I can't accept Mr. Nuts getting the nod over Felix Trinidad.
All right, quickly on Do You Care? Quickly, and we'll close it out. What a show. What a show. Tomorrow night, Friday night, Days In, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Yuri Cedeno, middleweights, main event, Ulces Rivera, 8 rounds. Joseph Adorno, former top-ranked prospect, is in the co-main. Do you care about this?
No, I do not care. By the way, that they should let me name the TKO circuit, because I can just call it the I Don't Care League.
Okay, let's go to Saturday in Liverpool. Days In again. Nick Ball, the pocket rocket at 126, will defend his WBA featherweight title. We know he wants Inoue soon. He's going to welcome TJ Doheny. I think you'll care about this. I do.
I do. There's no way this doesn't end up being a fun fight. Doheny has been in a lot of great ones. Nick Ball is just going to come like be pressure in action. It'll be swole little men going at it.
Saturday, Orlando.
Ayo, by the way. Ayo.
Saturday, Orlando, Florida, DAZN. Austin Ammo Williams in the main event of a 12-round matchroom card, middleweights, against Patrice Volney. But I think people care more about angry Edgar Berlanga in that co-main, mad at Eddie Hearn, taking on somebody called Jonathan Gonzalez Ortiz in a 10-round super middleweight bout. Maybe this is the beginning of the end for Berlanga on matchroom, but do you care about this?
Look, yeah, I mean, Eddie, cut his ass loose. Send him to Dana. They could build their great business off the back of Edgar Berlanga's.
Actually, I wish he'd go to PBC and fight Caleb Plant. You know?
That would be great. Look, that would be fun. There are good fights out there for Berlanga still. I hope he takes one. Shout out to whatever, the guy from Entourage.
You could build him up at 75 and have him fight Benavidez, right? You probably could.
You can if you want to see David Benavidez fuck up a bad fighter.
Okay, here you go. All right. Steven wants us to remember, real fans remembering the married millionaire Cotto sharing the bed with Brian Alvarez, his best friend, his male best friend. You know, people can listen to love songs in the dark, in a dark car riding across the interstate with Art LeBeau, like you and I did on the way to Jose Ramirez in Fresno. It happened. It did happen. Alan W., you take it. No, Alan, you take it. Thank you, sir. What is that a reference to? I don't know. Finally, on you caring, okay? We're going to find out here. You don't care about Ammo Williams in that main event, right? Or Jermaine Ortiz on the undercard? Deep undercard, Jermaine Ortiz.
Is that the guy who fought Lomachenko in them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really care about any of it.
Okay, Saturday, Ekaterinburg, Russia. Karatan Argba will take on Kevin Hyler Brown, 12 rounds in a WBA junior welterweight eliminator, no TV.
I was waiting for you to say cruiserweight because then I would care, but no, I don't.
Also Saturday, Long Beach, California, and also on DAZN, Amado Vargas, is he one of the 3 Fernando Vargas's fighting sons? Will take on Eduardo Hernandez Trego, 8 rounds junior welterweights. Are you in on that?
I don't think so.
I do like the Vargas brothers. They got.
Are you sure
fire.
It's one of them? Sure, he's one of them.
I think that's Amado. I think he's one of them. Finally, Sunday, MSG Theatre. The biggest Irish boxing card in New York City history will air on UFC Fight Pass. Callum Walsh, the Dana and Tom Loeffler promoted fighter, will take on Dean Sutherland, 10 rounds junior middleweights. I don't hate this undercard because I called a bunch of these guys in that last card. Thomas Carty, the unbeaten heavyweight, is on it. He's a fun prospect. Emmett Brennan, Kevin Cronin are going to have a rematch. You got Fergal McCrory in the co-main. You got the Hebrew Hammer, Cletus Selden. Will you care about Sunday?
I mean, I have a soft spot for St. Patrick's Day events because of my lifetime growing up around an Irish bar, but so I care a little bit. None of those fights really speak
Hank
to me.
Williams is telling us that McCrory, who lost last fight to Lamont Roach, is fighting Michael Carvajal's nephew. Interesting.
Named after Keenan Ivory Wayans, perhaps?
Yeah, Keenan Ivory Wayans. All right, that's
down dirty shame.
That's the show. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Alan W. All the warriors keeping this pod alive. Thank you for your support. Rafe, thank you for sitting down with me for 2 hours and 12 minutes and fixing boxing's issues.
We fixed it. We did it, man. Congrats.
We will follow you on the socials at Rafe Bugs, right?
Please do.
We will read your books and buy them on Amazon, maybe?
Buy them and buy them again.
Barnes and Nobles. Okay. Do you want to say anything else to the people or F those people?
No, I want to say I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I see y'all on Bablo Island someday.
Thank you. Do we have any other assets to play? Oh, one more, I think.
Jim, I gotta tell you something. Are these guys Russian or are they just in a hurry?
Thank you, Harold. RIP right there. All right, more fun and shenanigans next week as we recap the biggest Irish boxing night in history. That's Rafe Bugs. I'm your boy, BC. TKO's coming. Are you ready? Prepare your haws for the war that is to come. We are out of here. Damn right we're out of here.